did it deeply, did it carefully, did it thoughtfully, sometimes in their work uniform, sometimes rushing to be there with all of us. Students engaged in thoughtful dialogue, peer editing, good critical friends, their presentations, and sharing their learning through the lens of a critical and creative thinking, growth mindset, and more. We are so inspired by their awesome commitment to helping EPA grow and improve. And that's what they kept saying. They said, I am here because I want to make sure our school is always working to do its very, very best. And they are centered on students, and they were also so good about giving valuable feedback to one another. I just, if ever you want to be inspired, just hang out with any one of these students and see what it means to truly have the mindset that they can make the world a better place. And it starts with them. So I want to thank and publicly recognize, and I would scream off the tops of the mountaintops if I could, Maximilian Chavez, who Superintendent Leach met on the tour, Rita Badawi, Dulce Pacheco, Maria Angelina Martinez, who is also, by the way, if you didn't know, the BGCP Student Youth of the Year. Miss Maria Angelina. Zaira Ochoa, who found time even when she was watching, even Maria Angelina was watching little ones, Zaira was watching little ones, Valeria Chavez, who also some of you may know because she represents our school on the student council, that's the district-wide, Ivan Baron, and Daisy Nava. Keep those names in mind because I tell you they're going to make East Palo Alto Academy proud, for sure. So thank you students for inspiring us, firing us up, and just helping us understand what is possible in this world. So thank you. Yay.
Oh, this is just wonderful. And I wonder if any of this large group of honorees has a word or two they would like to add.
My name is Rita Badawi, and I just want to give a big shout out to like all our teachers and school representatives for always putting in the time and effort to making our school, not only our school, but our community a better place. And it feels like a safe place for us to go and study. Never once in our head, as a student, I never felt like I was in danger or never felt like school was a place for me. So I just want to give a big shout out.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to follow up. Oh, okay, Maria.
Oh, go ahead, Mac.
Yeah, I was about to say, I want to follow up by saying, I want to thank my school also for always putting their students first. Like, y'all don't begin to understand how much care they have for us, whether it's support on campus, off campus, even during virtual learning, no matter what it is, they're there for you, and we're there for each other. And so that kind of bond that is kind of unexplainable, but that bond is just there. It's strong and it's powerful. And it's close to my heart, and I know I'm going to hold this school forever to my heart, and I owe this school a lot, and I can't wait to come back. I'll tell you that much right now.
I want to give a quick shout out as well. A couple of weeks ago during Youth of the Year, I was asked, what's one decision in your life that has impacted you and made you who you are today? And I didn't hesitate to say attending East Palo Alto Academy. It was very difficult for me to get there to a certain extent. And it was a whole roller coaster alongside Miss Guillaume. But there I was able to meet some of my best friends and truly some of the people that have impacted me the most and really made me who I am. Through a pandemic or not, every single teacher has been there for me from the very beginning. I went off to Vermont for a semester my junior year, and teachers made sure that I was okay and that I didn't miss home, and they would send care packages. And even now when we're in a pandemic and senior year is harder than ever, our teachers, our principal, I meet with Miss Bradshaw and Miss Guillaume every other week to plan senior committee, even though we don't know what things are gonna look like. The amount of effort and love that goes into everything they do is really phenomenal. At EPA, because we're such a small school, it doesn't really feel like school, it feels like a family. And so I'd just like to say thank you so much for that. And then to the seniors, because the students receiving the award today are all seniors. I'd really like to commend them because of the hard work they've been doing since the very beginning. And it's like no other. And I'm very, very happy to be able to be a part of this cohort. So thank you so much.
Anybody else? All right, well, thank you very much to the entire EPAA team for these recognitions and for those kind words and for the great hard work. And Trustee Dubois, I see you have your hand up.
I have to say something. I just want to say I'm so proud of EPAA. When I think about a model small school and the ultimate charter school, I think of you. So I want to also thank you for this burst of energy and inspiration tonight to start off our board meeting. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, thank you. All right, and we can move then right on into student trustee comments.
Thank you. Well, there isn't too much going on right now. I mean, I think distance learning has continued, if not gotten better over these past couple of weeks. But yeah, I know a lot of students express sentiments of wanting to go back in person or even have some more opportunities to meet their teachers in real life or even step back onto campus that we haven't seen in almost a year. So yeah, I'd look forward to hopefully engaging in some of those opportunities as soon as it's safely available to do so.
You. All right. On to item number 10, comments from the Sequoia District Teachers Association. We'll go in that order this time. So Ms. Salvatore.
Good evening. Our bargaining team and the district met for another 5 hours this past week, and SDTA is very disappointed that we were unable to come to an agreement despite how incredibly close both sides are. We're waiting to hear back from the district to confirm a date for our next meeting, but I'm hopeful we'll be able to come together before the next time this board meets and that we will have news at that time to share. Beyond that, as we're all juggling changing and confusing information about vaccination opportunities, I was able, along with 3 other San Mateo County Union presidents, to meet with the county superintendent and the deputy chief of San Mateo Public Health to discuss our situation. They shared the outline of their plan for vaccinations, which I believe is being finalized this week, along with the hurdles that they recognize districts face in implementing the necessary health and safety protocols for a safe return to schools. In that conversation, Superintendent Nancy McGee shared that she recognizes the challenges are far more complex for high schools than they are for elementary schools, and that she does not expect it will be possible for high schools to come back this spring. We do not believe that is the case, as our district has done a great deal of work to get the sites better prepared, and we believe we are, as I mentioned above, incredibly close to an agreement that will give us a path toward return. It was, however, surprising to hear that from the county superintendent, as that is not the messaging she has given publicly to our communities. And I wanted to make sure they had all the same information that I have been given. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and comments from the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Zelda.
Good evening to all. AFSCME has been following the nation's news on the reopening of schools, and the message has been out there that they now understand that this would be a district by district basis and not a cookie cutter model that they will follow to open. And that definitely goes as a testament to our district in their work with designing a reopening plan to be approved. And then we also have an AFSCME team working in the international level that's working closely with the Biden team to ensure equity to all our members on the vaccine rollout and opening of vaccination sites. So I know in the larger news, we have heard that the Oakland Coliseum is one site, the Levi Stadium. There's a site, a large site in Southern California, and we're also looking at one in the Central Valley. And then just commenting on, really, this is the first time that I've really been seeing inclusivity coming down from the district with those surveys to have input across the community, our classified staff, and even at the student level. And so I love that. That is a huge step forward. And I really want to encourage the district to continue on that path. I'm not sure, but I'm going to step out and say that I think I kind of feel weird saying this because I'm going to put a name out there, but it's not. It's not for any other reason. But this is just from my insight, from what I've seen. Is I just want to give an enormous thank you to the new board member, Ms. Shawnee Stevenson, for asking the question, how will the district ensure the participation? And I feel that the efforts came out of that question because I've never heard that question before. I've always seen the administration level and the board level just kind of say, oh, we'll put out a survey, but no one has really asked, how are you going to follow up and make sure that, great, there's a survey, but how are we going to ensure that the parents, those that don't log in, those that don't know how to log in, those that don't have technology, those that, for example, students may not understand this at the level that they're inputting. So I just want to put my 2 cents in on that. And I want to thank the district for making the steps to be more inclusive on that. And AFSCME has requested to reopen our COVID-19 MOU to address new impacts. I know that we've had some dates set. Those dates keep changing, and I'm sure we'll catch up with HR soon on that. And then we're also looking forward to continue our work that has been on the back burner with the technology job descriptions, and we're hoping to land the employees in the right step or tier that they need to be in. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this brings us along to public comment. And this period is for speakers wishing to address the board on matters not on the agenda. Persons wishing to provide comments on non-agendized items should raise their electronic hand in the Zoom platform during this portion of the agenda. When it is the speaker's turn to comment, the board president will call on that person and staff will unmute the speaker. All speakers are requested to state their full name and affiliation with the district, if any, at the beginning of their comments when they're invited to speak. Board policy ordinarily limits the time to be devoted to public comment to 10 minutes, and individual speakers are ordinarily limited to 3 minutes. If the board decides to expand the amount of time to be allocated to public comment because many speakers wish to address the board may reduce the time allocated to individual speakers to 2 minutes or to 1 minute as appropriate in order to permit more speakers to comment. The board will announce the amount of time to be allocated to each speaker before public comment begins. The time allocated to each speaker will be displayed on the Zoom screen. When a speaker's time has expired, staff will mute the speaker. Staff will not notify speakers that their time has expired, so speakers should monitor their own time carefully. Please be advised that board members cannot respond to comments regarding matters not listed on the agenda, per Government Code Section 54954.2. I would also like to add to that there was a large amount of correspondence to the board over the last few days that pertains to the COVID-19 update and reopening plans for the district. And we anticipate that a lot of members of the public will want to speak on that topic as well, which would be within item 12.1, the COVID-19 update. So when we speak of non-agendized items, it would exclude that item, which will have its own place. So I do see 2 hands up. And before you speak, I'll ask you to consider whether it is indeed part of the COVID-19 update, or if it is a non-agendized item, which is what we are doing now. And I see we've gone down to 1 hand. That hand is Alan Fisher. So if we can unmute you, you can go ahead and speak. Do we have Alan Fisher to speak to us?
Mr. Fisher, you should be able to unmute yourself. You do have permission to speak.
I'm sorry. I thought you had unmuted me. Thank you. My name is Alan Fisher, and I am the father of a Menlo Atherton graduate. I attended a meeting in the fall for the discussion of the ethnic studies curriculum. At that time, something was presented which seemed largely based on the first draft of the state model curriculum, which had received a lot of criticism and was subsequently rewritten twice more, and the most recent released in, I think, December. And I know that at the time, the board was saying that the curriculum would be rewritten specifically for the district. So my question is, what is the status of that rewrite, and when will it be presented for public consideration? Thank you.
All right, Superintendent Leach, is there something to add in clarification to that?
I can circle back with staff and we can reach out to Mr. Fisher.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I do not see other hands up currently for public comment. So our next agenda item is correspondence this evening. All of the correspondence I have to speak about is going to come within the COVID-19 update. Other members have other correspondence to bring up. Okay, all right, seeing none there. That does bring us along to the COVID-19 update, our discussion item 12.1. Before I give this over to the superintendent to go, I just wanted to, again, quickly go through the structure of what we have planned. The superintendent will make the presentation. I will then ask the board members to ask any clarifying questions they individually have about things that were in the presentation. Then we'll present a summary of correspondence received on the topic. Then we will open it up for public comment on the topic. And then we will have board discussion to follow. So with that, Superintendent Leach, if you would take over.
Move everyone over so that I can. So good evening. So this is our first COVID update for the month of February. My apologies, I'm going to have to scroll down. So we will be going through a dashboard review. Before the holiday season, I believe our dashboard was made available on our website. And since then, staff has been working to complete all of the items that are sorted into different sections within the dashboard on areas related to health and safety and other areas that need process of completion to allow us to reopen. So we have completed 16 of the 25 line items. 6 of the 9 outstanding are still near completion, and there's been significant process on the 3 remaining outstanding items. So when it comes to facility requirements, this was really about the the safety of the buildings, the PPE was in here and so forth. And the major component within this area of requirements was the ventilation upgrades. And, you know, many think that this should just be an easy task to complete. Unfortunately, it wasn't for us. It was a process that we began. I believe, gosh, we began it back in May and have been working diligently on a ventilation upgrade to meet the recommendations of CDC and the ASHRAE guidelines for the fresh air exchange that they are recommending per hour related to COVID. So we are near completion with this upgrade. This should be moved to completion, I would imagine, within 2 or so weeks. That last big ticket of ours was the purchase of, gosh, about little bit around about $500,000 in portable air purifiers. And those portable air purifiers are to be placed in classrooms where the current HVAC unit could not get us to the recommended fresh air exchanges per hour that CDC and ASHRAE were recommending. So this goes kind of in along with some of the other fans that we've installed with the windows, and then also in single isolation areas, possibly in bathrooms and so forth, to get us to fully completion. So that should be done. We have received, I believe, a couple pallets, and we have more that are en route to us. Each site has been given an inventory of classroom lists, the amount of personal air purifiers, and the location, so that there's a complete inventory that we will be able to also share with all of our staff as well as our families, along with a checklist inside of the room and on the outside of the room on the modifications that have been made to the HVAC systems in these classrooms. Everything else on this list is complete. And again, this dashboard is located on our website. So when we go to staff training and health protocols, we kind of see a little bit more needs in this area. But again, we are so close, and some of the significant progress is just ongoing, and I'll explain that as we go through here. So the COVID-19 staff training is near completion. So effective January 1st, districts had to create a Cal OSHA plan. A lot of us are familiar with Cal OSHA, safety requirements for working environments. And so they had a special plan that districts had to write to implement the health and safety standards to ensure that we were keeping staff safe. And so this plan, thank goodness, is finally aligned with the state regulations, and then also is aligned with county health and safety standards, because unfortunately, prior to January 1st, these organizations were not on the same page, which means we had several different plans and several different levels of expectations and regulations that we were striving for. This plan is posted on our website, and we have pushed it out to all staff for review, as well as training videos, as safety precautions, things that we've done. And so when I say near completion, we have pushed that out, and we are now auditing to see who has not been able to look and view the Cal OSHA plan and or some of the training videos. The labor agreements, as Edith had mentioned early, are near completion. And are constantly being worked on several hours per week. Ongoing staffing for accommodated employees. So significant progress, but this continues to change as we have staff that requires leave, as we get closer to potentially coming back, or they just have different personal needs that we need to address, or unfortunately, need to go out for a significant amount of time. The daily health screenings for students, again, near completion. We are changing systems. We were using Ambry before, and now we are moving to Frontline, which is an internal system that the organization uses in many of our other process areas. So we begin that, I believe, in a couple of weeks. Okay, when we go to students, families, campus logistics, student education resources, again, they're written, they will be pushed out shortly. This is not quite a big lift. It was more the process and the gathering of information to push out to our families. The return survey near completion, as we will be having another survey that we send to our families shortly. We had sent one previously, I believe it was early December, about measuring the comfort level in the different colors of tiers. And so at that time, we did not have a learning model chosen for return in a hybrid manner, and we do so now. So now we will resurvey the comfort level along with the learning model. Lunch and breaks, this is still a progress. This is going to be significant progress because unfortunately the guidelines keep changing. And so as we get different safety protocols, this will continue to amend. And obviously when we get students back on campus, we will have certain safety protocols and rules for the students to follow around lunch and breaks. Okay, so I want to start continuing distance learning for the fall of 2021 semester. So I just want to again reiterate, there is no facts about continuing distance learning for the fall 2021 semester. We still intend to return to in-person instruction in the fall, and we are still targeted for a hybrid return for the remainder of this year. And again, if you have any questions related to this, please reach out to me. Obviously, my response and emails can tend to be slightly delayed, but I will answer you, and you can always email the communications department as well. So a reopening plan update. So criteria 1, San Mateo County Office of Ed must approve our reopening plan. We submitted that plan on December 4th. At that time, they had a 10-day approval period where they would review our plan and give us the yay or the nay. At that time, we did not have a date in our plan. And so we were working through a couple of those details. And at the same time that we were having those conversations, we were getting word from the state that new regulations were coming. And these new regulations were going to have specific instructions related to secondary schools, so high schools. And so the county, us also being the first public school district of significant size, right, to return, still needed to find a way to measure our plan, our process, and how our phased-in approach was going to be. So with them developing those metrics, along with the state, because they have to develop those metrics on their own, along with the state giving new regulations, they paused on approving and renewing and reviewing our plan. So I did meet with the county last month, not this past Monday, but a week ago, this past Monday. And we talked about the amendments that needed to be made to the plan, which include any of the updated requirements from the January 14th regulations that were released by the state. So those are in process, and we will be resubmitting those amendments to the county, hopefully within the next few weeks. So criteria 2, again, San Mateo County is currently in the purple tier. And under the current guidelines for the state's blueprint for a safer economy, grades 7 through 12 may not resume in-person instruction in the purple tier. So to kind of give some numbers to this, they measure the color of tier by the adjusted case rate. You can also find this link to where you can look at the adjusted case rate on our website. Last week we were at 17, I think 0.4, 17.5, and now we are down to 15.4-ish. I thought we would go down actually a little bit more than that, so I was surprised to not see. I thought we'd end up around 12, and we only went down a few points, but we will continue to watch that. To be in the red tier, the adjusted case rate has to be below 7, to give you kind of some context. So criteria 3, as far as what we have to reopen, is we have to have labor agreements settled, which again, the district is currently working through. There is options. So once we have that agreement, labor negotiations allow us to also return to the table as variations come, right? We're constantly getting new information from the state. And so that doesn't necessarily slow down how we negotiate, but it allows us to go back to the table. So we negotiate with the factors that we have now, and then we can again return to the table. This is an industry practice. I know sometimes we don't talk about this a lot, right? Outside, I don't know if we've ever really talked about it unless you kind of see something happen on a news and in another district. But in Sequoia's district, we just haven't, we don't talk about negotiations very much at board meetings, and it's not really kind of out there on what the process is. So I think that that's kind of led to also to some frustrations, is trying to educate our families of what those internal processes actually are, again, a standard for our industry. And then criteria 4, again, going back to the dashboard, that every line item must be completed. Again, the ones that are near completion, I don't see any challenges with them not being completed within the next few weeks. So as far as new government regulations, again, we have completed the guidance checklist. We're making a few of the amendments. They've changed some of the language. Our original reopening plan talked about stable and bubble cohorts, which I have talked at great length in previous board meetings on. That language is now being pulled out, and they are calling it something different. And the new regulations talk about stable groups. And so that needs to be amended in our plan. That prevention program, that CPP, is also on our website. That is connected to the Cal OSHA plan. And again, our return to in-person learning plan, that is a requirement by the state, and both the county health office and the county office of education is near completion with the amendments, and will be resubmitted to the county office of ed. So in my communication, I believe on January 26th, I shared what instructional model that we will be using when we do return to a hybrid model. And that is the concurrent learning model, also known as Roomers and Zoomers, also known as live streaming. And so this model, again, I encourage you, it's also on the website, encourage you to read the communication that went out 2 weeks ago. So what I want to kind of spend a little time on is why we chose this model. So when we surveyed our families, it was the responses to students keeping their same teachers, the responses to keeping the same schedules, and the responses to having actual interaction with live interaction with the teacher every day was very, very important for our families. So that's on this side of what's important to our families. And then on this side, we have the regulatory items that we have to make sure that we can do as an operation if our cases go up internally. And so with the state regulations, when we have a certain amount of cases, positive cases per site, we have to shut the site down. And so we need to choose a model that allows us the flexibility to move in and out of possible in-person concurrent learning, back to home environment, and back and forth. And so this, because of the complexity of secondary schedules in high school and the complexity of the classes, our models look very different than other, like, K through or TK through 6th. There are districts across the state that chose to do the traditional hybrid model, where you had live instruction, basically no device when you're in person with the teacher. And then the other days, though, you're doing packet work. That was not something that our families wanted when we did the survey. And again, that flexibility is removed for if we have to go in and out of distance learning because of positive cases. So again, I want to pause on this reminder. So we must adhere to the guidelines and protocols and procedures set forth by the state of California and San Mateo County. I completely understand the frustration. I have it as well when I watch the news and I hear that other states are doing this. Why can't we do this? And why is it working for them and why isn't it working for us? And I just would encourage you, if you have ideas about that, that focus really needs to be at the state level. And then within California, we will find that other counties are doing other things than what our county is doing. And again, that's at the county level. And then other districts within our county is really where we can dive in and we can have conversations about why that works for them, why it won't work for us. Oh, we're trying this. This is what works for us, and so forth. And so again, I just want to, with all of this flooding of information that comes our way, just to remind everyone that we are bound by the state regulations of the state that we live in. So coming soon, it's probably a little overdue, but I'm going to start some superintendent office hours, which will provide our families and obviously also our staff access to me where we can have some questions and answers, and there'll be a few times at different times during the week and throughout a few weeks to try to share some information. There's a lot of information to share in written form, although our readership has gone up in some of the communications. So I hope that this will also assist in providing increased transparency of what we're doing, what we have done, and then also where we're going, which I think is important. Questions? Sarver, would you like to call on people or would you like me to call on people?
Yeah, I've got.
So I can't see my
All
screen.
right, so we'll start with clarifying questions from our board members. And first hand I see up is Rich Ginn.
Thank you, Alan. Crystal, I guess 2 questions. First has to do with the San Mateo County Office of Education. You said it would be a few weeks. Can you maybe give a little color on what needs to happen during those weeks?
So we have to amend our plan. I have to remove all the reference to the cohort language that was previously in there before. And the new regulations ask that we put a high level of explanation of phased-in approach with schedules and what it will look like with students actually on campus. Previously, they just wanted explanation of how we would phase in the explanation of how we were going to have students move throughout campus was sufficient, and with the new regulation, it no longer is.
So you expect to be resubmitting by the end of February or early March, roughly?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say before that, but yes. Yes.
Okay. And then you skipped past a slide that had some details about concurrent learning model. I know you put a communication out to the community about it, but I've gotten a lot of questions and talked to people who didn't completely understand. I don't know if it'd be worth reviewing that slide, but I would say my understanding is that the teachers, our plan, and it's the plan that I think Palo Alto similarly released something pretty, if not exactly the same, would be to have the teachers in the classrooms when we are quote unquote reopen, and some percentage of the students would be in the classroom with their teachers and some percentage of the students would be at home. Is that correctly characterizing our plan?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Suffolk.
Yeah, so I kind of going off of Trustee Ginn's question. So I know like when Palo Alto tried to do something like that, there was some pushback from the teachers about the live streaming model. So I personally think it's a really good idea, but would you say that like the teachers are on board with that right now?
For the most part, yes. We've been talking about what learning model would work for the majority. I mean, we have 600 teachers, so we're probably going to have a few that don't do it. But as far as for high school goes, and to try to meet the needs, because they also want to keep you, right? They don't want you to have to go to another teacher. So it's a way to do that.
And also related to that, would all classes, like including like elective classes, be part of this model, like live streaming, or would some classes be totally online?
It depends on the availability of the teacher. So we're still working through that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Shanice, you had a question.
Yes, I actually have two. Well, first of all, thank you for explaining the county and the state, because I do think that makes a big difference as to where our plan lies and who does what and all those kinds of things. I do want to ask, has the county given you, maybe Rich asked this, maybe I'm just asking it different, but do we have a timeline which the county is responding? Like, are they giving, they say, oh, we'll review your feedback within 24 hours, a week? Are they giving us timelines? Because that's something we can't control.
That's correct. I would say that it's a fairly collaborative process. And so we're working through these new regulations together. So it's not going to be submitted blindly to the county when we do submit. So I would imagine that shortly after we submit, within a few days, we would receive approval.
Okay. And then I wanted to go to the San Mateo County Office of Ed. I know Edith with the Teachers Union had made a comment. Edith, you tell me if I'm wrong, that what is being said in public and what is saying behind the doors are two different things. Are you getting any indication that there's a difference of opinion about the great hope of being in person? And you may not be able to answer that, and that's okay.
I mean, for large comprehensive high schools, and like our district, with what we have, it is more difficult. The way that our county is structured and the sites that have the districts that have come back are small districts. The high schools that have come back are small districts. Size does matter. It's definitely not an open shut door. And so we look at how everyone else is doing it. I mean, myself, Bonnie, and Jackie have, every time we get sent a news article, and I appreciate them all. We usually see them, because we're connected to any type of media that comes out across the state. We're already reaching out, right? It's a very connected, when you're in education, chances are we've all worked with each other, unfortunately or fortunately, at a different district. So we're able to verify. So, I mean, it's different in San Mateo, but, again, it's not I don't want to talk about how difficult it is because we are moving and we have been moving to figure this out. There has never been a stagnant moment as far as the district goes in trying to bring students back.
Okay. And then last question, I'm so excited about your office hours. Thank you for doing that. Because I think as a person who gets overwhelmed, sometimes I just need to talk to someone versus reading stuff. And for myself, I misread things because of my language stuff that goes on inside of me. But I do have a question about the office hours, and it's just a little push to make sure that we have translation there for Spanish speaking families, and that all families know there's some way that they can be involved in those office hours so that they can also too answer those questions.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there other clarifying questions from board members at this point? All right, and I do see that there are some attendee hands and one more panelist hand up. I do want to go through the correspondence that we've had, and I have not tried sharing a screen before. I hope I can do that in a fairly straightforward manner. All right. All right, so as of about 2:45 this afternoon, when I compiled the list, we had received, I had received some 59 emails on the topic of reopening the schools. And rather than just read off this list of correspondence, I'm displaying it. It's not in alphabetical order. It's actually in the order in which those came in. And hopefully the people that have tuned in to be sure that they are being heard will see their names on the list. I've shared this with the superintendent. This can be appended to the minutes of the meeting. And I captured from this the points that were made across all of them. Many of them noted being members of an organization called Reopen SUHSD. Many of them did not mention that. There was a request to present a concrete plan for all students choosing to return. That distance learning is not working for too many of our students. That data shows that opening schools does not lead to increased COVID transmission in the community. That the CDC has indicated that vaccination is not required for a safe return to school. That it is recognized that this is an incredibly complicated issue. That negotiations with unions appears to be a major roadblock. That the district should be transparent about ongoing union negotiations. That families are frustrated, saddened, and angry at the situation. That Sequoia has had a year to fix this already. That most vulnerable students are struggling with the most with distance learning. Correspondence that wrote included coming from all 4 of our large high schools. There is real damage being perceived to students' mental health, social development, academic development, and that must be balanced against a 100% safety of staff. That local K-8 schools, private high schools, and public high schools around the country have opened and operated safely, many since September. That it is time for the district to put students' needs first. That Zoom and Room is not enough. Where is the plan for a real reopening? Use Zoom and Room, it's a good idea, and bring back a half or a third of the students at a time. Bring back all of the teachers and all of the students who want to come back. Students are despondent, tuning out, and they miss all of the social interaction of school. Sports and clubs also need to be restarted safely and immediately. Reports, I am a teacher myself. I've been in the classroom since September. We offer a hybrid model and practice all safety precautions. Nothing can be 100% safe. but this is doable, reasonable, and pays off for students and staff. Similar points were made by several parents who are teachers. We have all heard that Sequoia schools may not even open for in-person instruction in the fall. We can expect that everyone who wants to be vaccinated will be able to do so by the summer. Parents are eager to volunteer any way they can to help with reopening. This was repeated by many correspondents. Special ed students need to be prioritized for on-campus instruction. Distance learning has been particularly challenging for students with special needs. The plan on the seek.org website indicates that the district is close to being ready to reopen. Please don't hesitate to do so. We applaud the teachers for their hard work and dedication always, but especially during this past year. We all want our teachers to get vaccinated as soon as possible, but reopening can't wait for that. What special actions will be taken for seniors nearing graduation? Freshmen and other special groups were also mentioned as needing special attention. How did our students do in semester 1? We must fully return to the classroom in the red tier. Motivated parents want to be collaborative, not adversarial. Will students be allowed to repeat a grade without penalty? Sequoia students are behind their peers elsewhere in the state and the country. There is too much screen time involved in distance learning. The district should follow the lead of Palo Alto. So all of those have been shared through correspondence and can inform our further discussion. And I know we have members of the community that also want to speak. I see 4 hands up so far. If there are others, please raise your hand. I would ask that, having heard all of the information that was already contained in the correspondence, if you don't have new points to make in addition to that, please recognize that all of that has been heard and has been put on the table. And we know that many people believe those things. So far I am seeing 5 people with their hands up. And I need to pull my participant list back up. It's gone up to 8. All right. So I would ask the board, we have 8 hands up, and I anticipate that some others may join us. If we had 3 minutes apiece, that would be up to 24, 25 minutes to do that. Is it the interest of the rest of the board to hear all of these comments up to their normal length?
Yes.
Yep.
Heard one yes.
Yep. Yes.
Okay. All right. So with that, I would invite Ann Weiss to be able to unmute herself and speak.
Hi there, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the presentation tonight. This is my first board meeting I've been on. I am very excited to be here. I'm a member of the Reopen SUHSD group. We are hundreds of parents strong and we are growing leaps and bounds every day. I will tell you that as a parent and as a member of that group, I really appreciate all that you're doing to try to open schools. But I have to say that you have a community that is at its wits' end, and we really need action. And I appreciate that you guys are trying to take that, but I would urge you to act with a greater sense of urgency. The other very specific comment I have is I understand that the plan as floated today is that for children to return in the orange tier. And to me, that's not acceptable. And I'm curious if there is anything that's mandating that from the county or from the state, because I understand from Palo Alto that they are not doing that. So that's my specific question. And I cannot tell you how important it is for me and my family and my son to get back in school. You've heard it before, but there are significant mental health costs and our vulnerable kids are losing out here. So please, please do what you can to be collaborative with us as parents and as a community and to get our kids back in school. We want to reopen in red.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Amy Hines. I think it was Amy Hines that had a hand up next.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the time to talk. I had something planned, but I don't want to be repetitive based on what you've already heard from Anne, who is representing parents in our community, as well as the many letters you received today. I do have a couple of clarifying questions. I have been in multiple meetings where the discussion has been that schools will reopen to some in the orange tier and then will open to more come the yellow tier. Since the state and county guideline is for high schools to open in the red tier, I would like clarification on that and to confirm that what I've heard from leaders in the district is true and that orange and yellow is the current plan. And if so, I think, you know, as Anne said, we'd like to better understand why. That doesn't seem to make sense given the health guidance that it is safe to open in red. Also, there was mention that it's untrue that fall is at stake. And again, I have been in meetings where fall has been referenced that hopefully we will be able to open in the fall. We don't know what that will look like. There will be great restrictions. It sounds very similar to what we're talking about in spring. So I think that is where when people ask for a fall reopening, I think many people feel at that point all teachers will be vaccinated and that school would look pretty normal again. Granted, there may still be masking and some regulations that are needed, but I think parents would love to better understand what that would look like. I really appreciate your time and look forward to your thoughts on those two items.
Thank you. Next would be Jennifer Kaufman.
Good evening. Can you guys, oh, you can hear me. Okay, great. Good evening. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I sent a letter to all of the board members as well as Superintendent Leach yesterday. And I have a couple of comments that I would like to get a follow-up on. So not to rehash all of the things that were outlined by President Sarver, but my son is a TRACE student and TRACE isn't even recognized on the website as a school, but TRACE is the post-secondary that we have. And these are moderate to severe students, learning students, special needs students who have missed out on almost a year of community and just functional skills, and they are losing skills every day. My question is, why haven't those kids been brought back, those young adults been brought back, along with all of the moderate to severe and ILS class kids who are individual living skills? Because we cannot do this anymore at home. I have my husband who is working and who is trying to be on Zoom with my son for 5 hours a day, and he is not able to be at function. And my son is losing skills, and he is not able to speak anymore, and he's not able to do half of the tasks that he trained for years to do. And so my question is, I'm a special ed teacher myself, and we have been able to have our special ed students, which is a small population, back in school since September. And this is a unique and vulnerable, the most vulnerable population. And yet we haven't even had anybody reach out to us. I will put a shout out for our wonderful special ed teachers. They are doing the best that they can. But my son does not recognize a Zoom character from a cartoon character. So trying to teach that and give him a functional skill on how to wash his hands is just not working. And we have lost a year. And I know for some of my other counterpart parents, their kids with autism and with intellectual disability, we're losing skills. And we are supposed to be in a least restrictive environment. And right now it is the most restrictive environment. So there are legal implications there as well, because we're under IEPs. So I just am finally getting frustrated enough to come to a board meeting and speak. So thank you for your time. And I look forward to some type of a response and hopefully action towards these particular students. If football and baseball can get back, so can our kids with special needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Craig Carson. Craig, you should be able to, there you go.
Did that work?
Yep.
Oh, of course it's not Craig Carson. This would be Jenna Carson. I'm Jenna Carson. I'm a teacher in the district. And I just wanted to chime in a little bit with support for the idea of the concurrent Zooming as a step towards reopening. And I'm speaking to the board and the district office staff, of course, but also to the teachers that are listening. It's been really hard for us to talk to each other because we're not together. We don't see each other on campus. But I do believe that this plan allows for really the most flexibility and continuity for everyone involved. So what I like about it for the students is that they're gonna get to move in and out sick or well. Let's say they have allergies and their hay fever is bothering them. They know they won't pass that screening. So they could stay home an extra day and not have to miss school because, and miss their one day on campus, right? So that allows for kids to kind of go back and forth. I think it really allows for flexibility with teachers, and it's gonna be how we make it our own. So I'm a math teacher and my husband's a PE teacher, and it would look very different for the two of us, right? The level of synchronous instruction that I give for my math kids would probably be different than what he does in PE. But we would both be able to take attendance. We would both be able to have synchronous instruction every period. And I think it's going to be up to the teachers to be creative to how that works for them. But ultimately, it's probably going to be the best option. And I also believe it provides the most flexibility and continuity for the schools themselves to stay on track, to stay with the similar structures, to stay with the same bell schedule. Again, I want a message to no one likes this kind of combo thing that we're going to have to do. But the other option is to go from 0 to 100, right? Or in our case, from 0 to 2,400. So I don't know very many people who think we should have 2,400 kids on campus right away. So we need a stepping stone, and that means some kind of combination, maybe called a hybrid. But that's all hybrid means is combo, right? And I just think that this is going to be our best solution, and we can do it soon, and we can do it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next up is Melissa Almgren.
Hello there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Almgren. I do have a junior at MA who has had a tremendous experience there thus far. Prior to the COVID epidemic or pandemic. I do want to thank the board and everybody for their detailed updates this evening. It's been wonderful to hear everything that's in motion, and we appreciate all of the work that's going on. I can't begin to imagine the complexities involved. But I do want to reiterate a couple of points that keeps kind of coming up in my mind. One is I think parents and the parent community, I'm part of the Reopen SUHSD, sorry, say that quickly. I am part of that group, and I'm hearing a lot of parents bring up a lot of concerns around the level of transparency or lack thereof around the data. So I think there's a lot of places where if you as the district can provide some more data and transparency around, you know, the district survey that you're doing now, that you're asking people about their willingness to return, that would be super important to understand how many students are interested in returning. Equally as important, if not more important, is how many, like the percentage of teachers that are willing to return to be comfortable in coming back in person, especially when vaccinated. I appreciate this is a very complex issue, and I would never want to say I want to endanger any sort of teacher safety. My parents are teachers. I understand that, and I've talked to them a bunch about this. I think it's super important that everyone feels safe, but I also feel like there's probably a larger cohort of teachers that are willing to come back now or very soon in the red tier. I also would like to understand the percentage of kids who are not logging in because distance learning doesn't work for them or they're not engaged. And concurrently, who's receiving Fs. I know early on that was a very shocking number of 30%. I'd like to understand if that's higher now, if it's the same, what is that? Because that's terrifying. If we have 10,000 kids or give or take, I'm not sure the exact number in the district, and we have 30% of those not logging in, that scares me a lot. That's 3,000 kids we're failing. So transparency around data is super important. I would also like to understand what we can do as a parent community to support getting teachers back in the classroom. I know Ms. Salvatore indicated earlier that we're very close on these negotiations, but what are the blockers? Like, what can we do to get an agreement? What's going on, basically? Lastly, I would like to understand that, you know, if it's not in your control, whose control is it? It's the state, the county. Who do we need to be reaching out to? Who do we need to be talking to get this to move? And lastly, I would say, I'm sorry, I'm running out of time, but I have my other child's in private school, and I've seen them. The benefits of going back to school has been tremendous. He's a freshman in high school. It's imperative. Mental health issues are rampant. I'm not sure the board, I don't know how many, I'm sure you're reading all the articles, but there's a lot of really sad stories out there. So please keep that in mind, and thank you for your time and all your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to move over to the panelist list for a moment. Mary Angelina has had her hand up for quite a while, and then we'll come back to the attendees.
Hi, thank you so much. Again, my name is Maya Angelina. I'm a senior at East Palo Alto Academy, and my question was just about the presentation that Miss Crystal gave earlier during like the Zoom. And I thought it was really, really great information, and it was super short and condensed on the slides that she presented. I was wondering if that would be emailed out in a sort of newsletter to the Sequoia Union High School District students or the families in general. As a senior taking AP classes, I would love to know where we're standing in terms of when we could possibly go back to school. I'm definitely missing, and like Melissa had mentioned earlier, it's definitely something that I would love to know and be aware of and just see where our district is at. And so, though I think it was mentioned a couple of times that you could find like all of these updates like on like our website, I think the specific words were, if this like information could be sent out to the students just so that at least we know where we're going to be in the next couple of months, I think that would be very, very great. I know like as a senior and other seniors, when I talk to them and when they ask me, because I'm constantly talking to my teachers about what updates are, something like this would be amazing to have just to over. And I know for East Palo Alto Academy in particular, we would look over this in an advisory when we're all in a class and we would have a discussion on it. And so this would bring more peace of mind, especially as a senior in our last year. That was about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll ask the superintendent to address that when we get to the end of all the comments, but thank you. All right, I think our next speaker in the attendees list is going to be Sarah Gavisser-Leslie.
Hello. Hi, I just actually have some clarifying questions. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm a member of Reopen Sequoia Union High School District also, and asking some questions that I'm pretty sure we will, as a group, want to know the answers to. So I'm just putting them out there right now. The first question, Crystal talked about stable cohorts. We don't need stable cohorts anymore, but we need stable groups, and would love to know what that actually means. The second question is, in terms of ventilation and the rules around 6 feet between students, does that still hold? Just trying to understand student capacity in the rooms and what that is looking like. And then finally, while I totally appreciate that you feel confident that we'll go back in the fall, I would love to understand what gives that confidence, because and on that whole subject of transparency, that's really what I think a lot of parents are struggling with. I know I'm struggling with it, because I mean, people are really trying to make plans. Like, does this mean we have to leave the area? Does this mean I have to find another solution? What is our future look like? And hopefully they don't have to decide that, August 1st. And then lastly, just a question around there was something in what Ms. Leach read that mentioned new variants, and just curious what that means and how does that factor into decisions. So thank you for all. This was really the best meeting with updates that I've heard, and we appreciate that and looking forward to working with you.
Okay, thank you. Our next up will be Elizabeth Santana.
For some reason, it asked me, Amy Hines, to unmute, but I already spoke.
Can people hear me?
Yes, is that Elizabeth?
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm a parent of 2 MA students, and I'm also a member of the Reopen Schools group. And similarly, as other attendees have shared, I also would like to advocate for reopening in red. And I think that something else I wanted to suggest is really using this spring as an opportunity to really pilot a return to school. Obviously, we can appreciate how complex and difficult this is, with such a large school, but in order to prepare us for the fall and for being able to have more students in school in the fall, I think it's really important to use this spring to test out an in-person hybrid model, to get kids in school 2 days a week or something like that. Because obviously there are going to be challenges, and there's going to be, some tweaking and some changes that are going to be needing to be made. And I think and probably other parents also really worry that, if we're sort of in that position in the fall, it's just going to make for a difficult start to the school year. If I look back to last year, how distance learning started in March, a lot of progress was made based on, the difficulties and challenges that emerged last year, and how MA, our school, at least I can speak of, really improved upon that this year. And again, the return to school is going to be even more complex. So I really wanted to urge people to consider that. And also I had a few questions. Crystal mentioned that there is a learning model that was recently adopted that's different from what was being used before. And so I wanted to ask what that would be. And also, I think it sounded like one obstacle to bringing students back into the classroom was that in early December, there was a questionnaire in which parents said they were not interested in having their students' schedule change. And, that was in December. We're now in February. I know myself, and this also came up in the Reopen Schools group, parents now may feel very differently than they did in December. The longer this drags on, I think the more willing we are to take schedule changes or whatever it is, as long as our kids can be in person with a teacher in person. I think parents are not interested in having kids come to the classroom for more Zoom. But we are interested in, potential schedule changes if it means having a live teacher in front of our children. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. I see a couple of hands up currently that have spoken before. So check if you've already spoken but forgot to put your hand down. And I'm going to go on to ask Michael Deksheniks to speak. How did I do on that name? It's an unfamiliar one to me.
Remarkably well. I appreciate it. So hi, I'm Michael Deksheniks. I've got two high school students at Menlo Atherton. Wanted to introduce ourselves. You've heard mention of the reopened Sequoia Union High School District group, parents group. What we thought would be productive is that read an open letter that we drafted for the board of the school board here as a matter of introduction and a clear statement of our position. So we are Reopen SUHSD. You can find our website. You can find our Instagram presence. As of today, our count is well over 400 students, parents, teachers, and community members committed to public education, and growing rapidly, by the way. So we are actively organizing the parents across the district. I want to be clear that we advocate a return to in-person on-campus instruction as soon as possible for those students who choose to return. We believe that this return must happen in the red tier. The school board, the Sequoia Union Teachers Association have a unique opportunity to leverage the lessons learned from the cities, the states, the nations that have kept schools open during this pandemic, and it continues to work. So we've got plenty of great working examples out there right now. Our district should follow the science. CDC data indicates that total vaccine coverage is not necessary to reopen. We will help advocate for teachers to be prioritized for vaccination. However, our plan should not be dependent on teacher vaccinations in order to reopen. As parents and educators, we know that students most learn effectively and that their social and emotional and mental health is best served by attending school in person. I want to let you know that we've read the reopening plan, we've attended numerous board sessions, and we still do not have clarity on what it will take to reopen schools in red. So our questions are, what is the plan with the given constraints to reopen in red? And if you don't have a plan to reopen in red, why not? What are the requirements from all the stakeholders, and what can we do as a community to help get there? We need to reopen in red. We've learned a lot about COVID over this last year. We have a better medical understanding of this virus, and we know how to mitigate risk. The CDC has said it is safe to reopen. I'd like to remind you that our students are the largest constituency in this matter. Many of our kids are suffering directly from learning loss, lack of social contact, depression, and indirectly from any number of issues which are draining their motivation. The student voice has been underrepresented in this process, and given the circumstances, it has been a challenge to advocate for themselves. We're here to give our students that voice, and we want to help. And we're standing by to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next in line is a reopensuhd.com parent. Could you tell us who you are?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, my name is Satiz Kadavar, and as you can gather, part of the Reopen SUHSD parent group. And the reason I put that up as the name, I just want to encourage anybody out there that would like to join the group to do so. I'm a parent of an MA freshman, and I am also an MA graduate as well. I'm not sure if I'm one of the few on the Reopen group. Being an MA grad, I learned that being collaborative and not adversarial will get you a lot further. And so that is, I think, one of the key messages that we as the parent organization are coming to the school board and the broader community with. And you've got a tremendous resource of parents who are exceedingly motivated to help in this matter. So that's what we're all doing here collectively is offering to work with you. I would like to get into a few tactical questions that maybe are topics that haven't been covered. I believe I heard us say that the plan will be submitted in a few weeks, somewhat vaguely. If so, maybe you as a board tonight can spend time specifically figuring out exactly what needs to be done and creating a deadline of that plan being submitted within a week. The president called this a national emergency. And so the act of resubmitting the plan to just kind of be out there vaguely is a bit troubling. And I do appreciate board member Guillen for following up on that matter earlier. My next tactical question is, have you actually ever asked the parents for any help, and do you genuinely want to, and do you plan to actually take us up on that offer? Third tactical question, and I hope somebody's taking notes. On the plan, it states a teacher's class may have students that experience 100% distance learning 5 days a week. If we could get some clarity on that, that would be much appreciated. And I would also like to reiterate some of the prior comments about full transparency. It's really, really important at this stage. This group is beyond frustrated. And this is my first board meeting here, but having seen what I would consider the most pertinent slide presented tonight, skipped over, I found that a little bit troubling and sort of consistent with some of the things I had heard about transparency with this group in the past. What I think we need to do is put the past beside us, behind us, and just have full transparency going forward. And I appreciate one of the board members who went back to that slide, because a lot of parents do not understand the details of the plan. And let's please reopen in red. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up would be Carrie Mueller.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have been sitting on these board meetings since last April when this all happened. You've received, board members, Superintendent Edith, probably a dozen emails from me. So I think I'm relatively well known with your group. I've spoken to Simone personally several different times, also some of you board members personally several different times. I've also spoken to a lot of teachers. And a question that I've been asking since last April, or maybe a little bit later, definitely in the summer, was why are we not allowing all the teachers and students who want to be on campus be on campus? I know personally, because I've spoken to quite a few teachers, that they want to be there. They really want to be there. They understand what their job is. They understand that their job when they signed up had risks, regardless of what, risks like catching a cold, catching influenza. Nothing is risk-free in life, and they want to be in the classroom doing their job. As parents, I know hundreds of kids that want to be in the classroom, hundreds. So we have these groups of teachers and we have this group of kids. They all want to be there. Why can't they be there? Why do we have to rely on a labor union negotiation to get them there? I don't understand why we just can't let those come together who want to be together. Can you imagine if we let that happen, which we could have let happen back in September, the number of hours of interactions and engagement and education that would happen? As you can tell, I respect Satiz's comment about collaboration, but I'm siding with Anne's comment about frustration. Given that I've been on these calls since April, it's probably not a shock that I'm highly frustrated. But I've heard we're working on a plan, we're trying to do this. I appreciate that the state and the county change things, but the sense of urgency is just, it doesn't exist. I mean, I've watched this board operate for the last 10 months and there's no sense of urgency. If this were my job, I'd be getting together every frigging week, multiple times to figure out how to make this happen. I would take charge, I would do something. I'd have a list, I'd have a timeline, and I'd live up to it. So my frustration level is obviously incredibly high. I ask you as people elected in your position, we voted for you, we chose you because we thought that you would do a good job. Please do a good job, do something, make it happen, reopen in red. If we actually gotten our plan in, we could be open in purple even, but reopen our schools. Thank you.
Okay, next would be Noah Eisner.
This is Melissa Almgren, and I was asked to unmute, but I'm not Noah Eisner.
Yeah, I want to go to people who haven't had a chance to speak yet first.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm pulling a Jenna. I'm not Noah Eisner, I'm Sarah Eisner. And I want to quickly reiterate the desperate desire of so many families to reopen in red. And I will say for myself, it's in whatever way possible to get as many kids on campus as soon as possible, again, in whatever way possible. And I also wanted to lift up the concern about summer school. I know that this is California and we could be doing classes outside even in a couple of months, but we certainly can be doing them outside in the summer. And we have lots of kids that need to make up classes and also raise up grades and just catch up on learning. So I'd love to see the detailed plan for outdoor summer school. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Lori Scott, please.
It appears that Lori has an older version of Zoom that doesn't allow her to speak.
Okay. Then let's
allow her to chat it in or for her to
dial in.
I can promote her to panelist.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't plan on being on video. Sorry, I had an older, I have the older version. I had something else planned for tonight, like so many others, but I appreciate you addressing many of the topics that the reopened Sequoia Union High School District group is imploring you to consider. I'm sure you also share in our frustration that the students you were elected to advocate for have now been home for 332 days. Instead, I just want to remind you that this community wants to support you, but we're having a difficult time understanding what the specific roadblocks are. I ask you to provide transparency in the negotiation with the SDTA so we can know what tangible ways we can support. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's have John Asunto next.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm a parent of 2 kids in Menlo Atherton High School. I'm also a member of Reopen SUHSD. We've all read about the negative impacts to children due to their isolation at home by not attending school in person. I'm an advocate of a return to in-person, in-classroom, teacher to student direct on-campus instruction as soon as possible for those students who choose to return. I believe that return must happen in the red tier. Our district should follow the science, like all of the other successful districts that have opened. And those that are already doing so have already approved doing so, including local neighboring districts down the road from us. CDC data indicates that total vaccine coverage is unnecessary to reopen. Our plan should not be dependent on teacher vaccinations. Let's follow CDC's advice on this, please. I'm also asking for complete transparency from the board in all negotiations, discussions, interactions regarding this issue, including those with the teachers union and with the San Mateo County Board of Education. It's quite disturbing how long it is taking to get our plan approved with the San Mateo County Board of Education. I'm asking for the utmost sense of urgency here. In a similar fashion to another speaker just before me, I'm also asking you as the board to be the advocates for the students first. Teaching students is or should be your #1 mission. Thank you.
Thank you. Next would be Sandy Tim.
Hi, my name is Sandy Tim. I am the mom of a junior and a freshman at MA. I am also a member of Reopen SUHSD. I appreciate very much this call, the work involved, the updates. I am here to advocate for our students and advocate for our teachers. My son's combined 12 teachers are doing a phenomenal job in an amazingly challenging climate for educators. Like Carrie Mueller said just a few minutes ago, I've talked with many of these teachers who desperately want to be back in the classroom to do their jobs. But despite that, we know that our current system is failing many of our students, especially our students from underserved communities and students with learning differences. Everyone on this call knows that despite any and all of the effort, the learning loss and mental health implications for our kids are dire. I was on an MA PTA call last week when we heard that the administration hoped that our students may be back on campus 50% of the time in the fall. This is absolutely unacceptable. I want complete transparency and to know what is the plan that we can implement day one, moment one, when our county and state allow it. I'm advocating for a return to in-person learning for all students who choose to return in red. And I, like many others on this call and in our community, am standing by, ready to work to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, Stacy Goldman.
Hi, I'm Stacy, and I'm the parent of a current MA junior and an incoming freshman next year. I had a larger statement ready to read, but at the risk of being repetitive, I will only kind of highlight that I consistently watch my high schooler Zoom in from a darkened bedroom. Her personality is muted, her motivation is muted. She is trying her best, as I hope you are as well. And after this board meeting, I truly think you are, and want you to know that there are so many parents besides myself who are desperate to collaborate and support your efforts. But it just sometimes feels like there is not enough transparency. I am very encouraged to see the dashboard fully updated and to hear Superintendent Leach's touching on how they're updating some of the points of the reopening plan. And some more specific questions I had about that were, could you please clarify how the stable groups work within the Zoomers and Roomers framework? I know there was a lot of talk about the difficulty working with stable cohorts, given the size of our high schools and our district as a whole. So what does a stable group mean, and how will this work going forward? And also to just please clarify, I know this has been stated, if our reopening plan is tied to a tier, because as part of Reopen SUHSD, we are needing to reopen in red for the sake of our kids and their mental health. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Carolyn Lynch next.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Carolyn Lynch. I currently have a junior at Menlo Atherton High School. People who have spoken before have spoken far more eloquently than I could about the process. I'm going to talk personally. I graduated from Menlo Atherton High School in 1989 and had a son graduate from there in 2017. I have been a profoundly proud advocate of Menlo Atherton my entire life, and I am not anymore. We are in crisis. We are not just in COVID crisis, we are in a crisis with our kids. What is it going to take? We all remember the mental health crisis that this community survived 10 to 20 years ago. I don't want us to go back there. Kids are literally in the dark, physically and mentally. There are many, many students who cannot learn this way. Exclamation point on cannot. We have to help them. We don't know where we'll be as a community in the fall or next year or the year after that. We need a plan to educate our students now, or we will be looking at a lost generation. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker then will be Julia Molise.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. Like so many of the people who have spoken before, I had a statement prepared, but I don't want to be repetitive. So I just want to say I'm speaking from the perspective of having one child in the Sequoia Union High School District and another one in the MPCSD. As all of these kids, my sophomore has not attended school on campus in nearly 1 year, 333 days today. And my 8th grader has been attending Hillview in person in a hybrid model since November. And it has been life-changing. Trust me, I understand the effort that went in, the Herculean effort that went into having MPCSD execute and implement a safe return to campus. But they did it. They put in the time and they made it happen because it was essential. And I know that there are many, many differences between these two districts, but the one thing that I hope that you can see tonight is that both districts have community members who are standing at the ready to support you. Thank you so much for the presentation that you gave tonight. It makes us feel a whole lot better. I speak for myself, and also I should say that I am also a member of the Reopen SUHSD. But we do need transparency. We do need you to act with urgency. As Carolyn just so movingly said, these kids are in crisis. I don't know if you guys have high school students living in your homes, but let me tell you, it is not okay. It is not sustainable. And then finally, my daughter is not a data point on a hypothetical study. She's not hypothetical. She's very, very real. And she was very scared to pick her classes for next year the other day because she has no idea what to expect from the school. So I just would like you to consider that. And please, we urge you to reopen the schools as safely as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, looks like Tracy Gray will be our last speaker.
Hi, my name is Tracy Gray. I am also a member of Reopen SUHSD. Thank you so much for giving us the time to speak tonight. I will not repeat what has been said, but I will jump on the heels of the last speaker, Julia Molise, because I am an educator. I am a first grade teacher in the Menlo Park City School District, and I fully recognize that there is a huge difference between elementary and secondary education. And in order to open our schools, we climbed mountains. And I have been teaching in person 5 full days a week since September 28th of 2020. I and my colleagues had many hesitations about going back. We were up morning, noon, and night making it happen. And I have not regretted for one day that we went back into the classroom. And again, I recognize that teaching first grade in person can look very different than teaching high school. And there are a lot of moving parts when it comes to a school of 2,400. I forgot to mention, I do have 2 students at Menlo Atherton High School, a freshman and a junior. I have not received the vaccine. My fellow teachers have not received the vaccine. And that is my reason for speaking tonight. Is I've heard that it's being used as a bargaining chip through the teachers union. The union is there to support us as educators, but our job as educators is to be in the classroom, It is to be with these students. It is a night and day experience being on Zoom with children and being in person and connecting with them. I cannot wait until I hear the news that I get to get my first shot and my colleagues feel the same. But I speak to the educators that are on this Zoom. We can't wait for that because our kids need us. They need you to be back in the classroom. And I know there are so many that are anxious to be there. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your presentation. And I look forward to getting my 2 students back into school. Thank you.
All right, we have another hand up to be our last speaker. Now it's Claudia Gruber.
Hi, thanks for giving me the opportunity at last second. I just was really moved by what Tracy just said. I'm also a teacher. I've been in the classroom full time since September. It was hard. A hybrid model is hard. It's really hard to teach, but I would not change the setting for going back to a Zoom teaching all day long, which is so hard in itself. So please, all the teachers from any high school that is listening, we need you back in school. My senior really wants to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate that tone and spirit as a closing comment. All right. It is just after 8 o'clock. We have had a lot of additional input here. I would put to my board colleagues that we might be able to give greater depth and focus to the conversation to follow if we take a brief break before we do that. But I can easily be outvoted on that. I'll just ask for your quick opinion on that.
Could use a 5-minute break.
Okay.
Before we go, are we allowed to say anything? We can't comment on the comments, but do we say anything?
No, we can't. That is
because
part
it's
of
on
an
the agenda.
agendized item that we are discussing.
I'm sorry.
Like I said, I think we're about to get into a very deep conversation.
Okay.
And I'd like to go there thoroughly.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so it is, I've got 3 past 8. Let's be back at 10 past 8. Okay, and everyone please stay tuned. We'll get into it. right, do we have everybody back? All right, then let us resume. And we have heard all of our public comment on this agenda item. And now we can have board discussion and any additional follow-up questions, other clarification.
Well, Alan, there are just a ton of questions, and Kameen, I don't know if it makes sense to, if you want to, I guess Crystal will be the best one to take a stab at answering them, or Crystal, if you have an idea of how you see this running for the next section here.
So I took a lot of notes on the questions, and a lot of the speakers are from specifically this. I wrote down the acronym, the Open for Schools, and so I've already in the back end been working out an opportunity just to meet with this group to field some of their questions and provide them their own basically office hours. In summary, I'm not really sure where some of this information is coming from. I'm not quite sure that this is the right type of meeting to have that, because it's more of a back and forth, right? When there's comments about when we're going to open, because I haven't announced anything about that yet. There's a lot of conversation about transparency and a lot of conversation about, like the learning model. And so I think it's important to revisit the communications that I've sent out, and I can do that during the SUPS office hours, and then obviously go into more detail about the stable cohorts and the safe distance and what's required and why we've chosen some of the safety measures that we have chosen, that we've been operating on. And kind of address it that way. Because I think that a lot of the answers are not black and white. And so I think that the answer will then lead to another question. And I'm not sure if that's what we want to do tonight.
I think that makes sense to, if you're going to do a forum in the near term where people can be more conversational, that might be a good way to address a lot of it. Carrie, you have your hand up.
Okay.
I was going to make comments not related to your question. Do you want me to? You want to finish your thought? Rich?
Well, mainly was just, my first question is kind of just procedurally, like, how are we going to do this next section here when we reflect on what we've just heard? And I thought first was hearing what Crystal thought about just answering specific questions, and I think having a forum where people can ask follow-up questions would be much more productive than trying to do it here and now. That was kind of my first thing. I have a couple individual questions, but I can wait.
Okay. Ellen, do you want me to go?
Yeah, Carrie, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, it's so hard to know how to respond and what to say. So I struggle. I struggle with these words. I just want to say that to all of the parents that spoke tonight. I want to say, somebody asked if we have kids. 3 of us on this board have kids in the system. If you don't know me, I have a senior at Cromwell who has lost his senior year. I also have a former student. He is in college studying musical theater. And you can't do musical theater very well on Zoom. He had a horrendous year last year, and he's not very happy this year, right? I'm an advocate for the mentally ill. I'm highly involved in the San Mateo County National, I'm involved in San Mateo County National Association of Mental Illness. So I know families inside our district and outside our district struggling with kids with major mental illness issues and dual diagnosis substance disorders. So I know that pain. So I want you first to know that we are parents. And again, I don't know if this is going to help or not, but when I first started paying attention to school boards, when I was a parent in the Santa Clara School Board, when I first started paying attention, I didn't like what I saw. It seemed like there was not a sense of urgency, and the issue wasn't as big as what we're dealing with right now, but I thought there wasn't a sense of urgency, that the board didn't look like they were taking action, didn't look like they were moving, it didn't look like they were very intelligent. And somebody I knew in the community whose husband was a school board member said to me, it's a public process. They can only meet in public. They can't talk to each other because of the Brown Act. The meetings have to be publicly noticed, and it's all in public, which is a slow and messy business. Her quote was in my mind as some of you were speaking. It may look like we're not moving urgently, but it's not, our work is not just in these school board meetings. I think every one of my colleagues has put in so many hours, but I don't want to talk about us. I want to talk about our staff members and all of the hours that they have put in. I'm so worried that we're going to have to go back to closed session, and Crystal is going to have to go back in with us, and she won't leave until midnight again tonight. It's huge effort. And if it looks like we don't have a sense of urgency, and I don't speak for me, I want to especially speak for my colleagues and our staff. But the other thing I want to say, and again, I don't know if this is helpful or not, and I take a risk doing this in public where it might not be helpful, and I may face backlash for what I'm going to say. Today, I spent all day on the phone calling people with different perspectives. I called parents who I think are influencers, and some of you are on this call right now. I picked you to call today. I called some teachers. I called school board members in other districts. I spent all day on the phone. And I listened to different perspectives, and we're not hearing as much of the perspectives that I heard today in the comments tonight. And somebody made the statement that when you ask teachers, they want to go back. Yes, they do. I would say 100% of our teachers want to go back. 100% of our administrators want normal, what we saw before. But when you really ask them, will you go back? And it's not all teachers, it's only some. What I heard today, I talked to a teacher with an underlying health condition. She's also a teacher that we hold up as a model, as an innovator. She's a great teacher. Because of her underlying health condition, she cannot go back. I've talked to so many teachers that have babies and toddlers, and they are worried about going back. So there are different perspectives. I also talked to some families, some low-income families, or people representing low-income families today that are not comfortable going back. We have been operating academic pods, and there are some families, because the parents are essential workers or the kids are working, they're not comfortable coming back. So I just want to say there are some different perspectives. And the last thing I'll end with, and I just want to, that's what we struggle with as board members, the whole community, our staff, our kids, the whole community, that's what we're balancing. I just will end with, we want our kids back. We want normal school. And I know that somebody made the comment, it was a parent that said, you don't want your child just going back, staring at the computer and doing Zoom. And I guess that's maybe the question I have. If we're doing this, if we have a community where everybody's not going back, that's what it will be, right? It will be kids staring at the screen. What I want as a board member, I don't want to send kids back to a worse version of school. And that's why I've been advocating, and some people have pushed back on me. I thought it would be easier. Let's start with getting kids back with the clubs and the, things, music, art, give kids back that way. Because the academic piece is more complicated for high school, and it is not, the high school districts around us are not open. They're going to open. Palo Alto announced that they're opening and they're sending high schoolers back. They just announced it. But you're going to start hearing about the complications. Now, I know we need to be pivot, we need to be bold, we need to get kids back. We are working, we have a sense of urgency. But I want to be careful, and I want our teachers to come back with us, and I want a version of school that is as good as we had before, if not better, not a worse version of school. So I guess my question in all of that, I'm sorry if I spoke too much, it's just so hard to know what to say to a community that is hurting and in pain, and I acknowledge that. Going back right now, whether it's this concurrent model or whether it's the hybrid model, is not a teacher teaching, moving around the classroom and kids moving around and kids having lunch with their friends, right? So who do I ask that question to? Ellen, you can help me with that question.
And I will talk to that when I take my turn later on. Shanice, what are your thoughts?
Yes. Someone asked, do we have kids? Yes. Yes, I do. Yes. That is my first job. Then all those other jobs that came after that, including this one, comes after being a parent. And so I want to be clear about that. So I'm not sitting in a vacuum. And I trust that those members, Alan and Chris, who kids aren't in the district anymore, they have their own passion and their own perspective that they can bring to the table. And so we hear you. And you know, when my husband and I get into it, he'll say, I'm on your team. He has to scream it really loud because I get stubborn. But I'm not going to scream at anyone saying, I'm on the same team with you. But I am. It sounds very hokey, but I am. And every email was read. If nothing else, but we received it. We have all read every email. The humble ones, the ones who are shouting out in frustration, those who are crying because they need help and they need support. And I still want to say our schools are still here for you, even in the hard times. Every person that I've seen where there's been red flags there, where I want to make sure you're connected, because I can only do so much with the board stuff. If there's individual stuff with you and your child, you really need to talk to your school. As a person who has I don't know if Simone would say it, but I have a good relationship with my school now because that's important, because that's part of your village, it's part of your community. And they're not sitting there twiddling their thumbs either, most definitely. The other thing that stood out to me that a couple of people have said is, where's the transparency? And I know when I sat on the other side of the table, it was hard to understand all these different pieces. And so I implore you to really interact with our superintendent who has made herself available. She gets a ton of emails from me, and I don't think she's just answering them because I'm a board member. She was answering those before then. And so I think it takes her a little bit. We got to give her grace, but she will get back to you. So I'm very excited about these office hours that you will be doing. Kudos to you. We want our community to be accessible. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, there was a student, I can't remember her name, Annika, from EPAA, but she said, can you give that PowerPoint to the students? How powerful is that? That students want to mold over what it is that we are thinking about them. And so I do think, and Bonnie, you tell me if I'm wrong, you actually said, I'm here to do the voice of my student. I would implore you to say, have your students fill out the survey that's being sent to them, to talk about it in class, raise it up. I just talked to the Black Student Union. I said, your voice matters. And I'm an advocate from a social justice perspective, from a social work perspective. So, no one can turn a deaf ear to a child. So ask them, not for their parents' sake, but for their sake, say what it is that would work for them. That actually is powerful, that their voices rise to the top of what works for them. And I tell you, as a parent who is trying to transition into not being a hovering mama, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me, because I got a senior who I'm trying to get through this year. I do also have to step back and say, give them your voice. because I do think that is important. It impacts date. If Annika, you tell me, you and Sean, if you hear a kid's voice, a student's voice, a learner's voice, you listen a little bit differently and you can move in the moment and you can pivot in the moment. So I also want to say, parents, I love your voice. We hear you. I have not slept for over a week trying to figure out and wrestle with all these different perspectives. That's my gift and that's my greatest challenge because I want to listen to all of these voices. But your student can talk directly to their school about what works for them. And that's why I'm so happy we have a trustee that's a youth that we also sometimes disagree with, but his voice is ultra powerful in my body, at least, because I'm like, hey, that's a different perspective and it impacts him the most. So getting that to our students will be awfully impactful because they also can be messengers to their parents, especially in communities that I represent, East Palo Alto, Bellhaven, Fair Oaks. They can be champions in their own community. Matter of fact, they are. The last thing I want to say is summer planning. I know we'll talk about it when it gets on the future agenda, but that's where my heart is too, because I suspect that some of our kids will need a lot of support in the summer, that and mental health, and not mental health in the traditional sense of mental illness, dual diagnosis, but we also have the spectrum of wellness. And so we have to pull our families back together, our kids back together, that they can do it. I know this all too well, having a child with sickle cell who just got hospitalized at the end of last year, who couldn't go to work, who's going back and forth, doing everything distance learning, and she's struggling. But because of the wellness that Stanford has taught her to manage her stress, she is now accessing distance learning. A year ago, 2 years ago, when she took an online class that took her a year to get through because she couldn't figure it out because of the stress, she is now prepared to do distance learning. So if she had to take another class and not forced to take distance learning, she could actually take an online class and manage herself. So this is an opportunity for us to really begin to think about wellness so our kids can be agile, because a crisis may come again, but our hope is that if it ever comes again, our students can say, we got this, and they can deal with it a little bit better. So that's all I'm gonna say. I'm going to pull back. I just want the families in the community to know that we see you, we hear you, I feel you, I'm with you, I'm in it with you, our people are with you, and we are here. Even when you're frustrated, we are here for you.
Amika, you have some input for us.
Yes, thank you, everyone, for being so thoughtful about this. There's no easy answer, and I just wanted to give a little bit of balance, and most importantly, thank you, Shanice, for remembering our survey, because there are 10,000 students. We're about 6,000 students short on those responses. So if you hear nothing else, tell your child to please respond to the survey, because we absolutely want to hear their voices. We absolutely want to hear every single one, and we're about 6,000 short. So everyone turn around and look at your child in the eyeballs. I just did, and she told me all of her answers, because I have a sophomore in the district. She was my child in my own school for K-5, and now she wants to be by herself. So she is Sean's student at Sequoia High School. Who, by the way, she loves her school, but don't tell my students she loves her school. So, the important balance, I'm just curious. Before the winter break, I had 48 students on campus. We were buzzing. We were moving, and it was a beautiful thing, and I was feeling uplifted. Yes, they were doing distance learning in their cohorts on campus, but there's still something, right? The energy required to get out of bed, get yourself cleaned up, show up at the school on time, and do your work. We are now down to 31%. On a good day, I have 15 kids showing up because of COVID positive contact problems. The community of East Palo Alto is about 13% of our community is COVID positive right now. So I do want to be realistic that if we come back on campus, this is going to be a limitation. I also want to just throw it out there that for my friends who teach overseas in Europe, they have a different model, right? It is more of a cohort elementary model for the high school student. It's the teachers who come in. So they're thinking, great, we're going to go back to school because we, similar to elementary, had that model. They are closing and coming back and closing, coming back because of the same problem that we experience in our cohort model. So I'm super curious for all of these folks who say, let's go back, what would it feel like when we say we're going back and then we have to close? And I'm telling you, we're at 31% because of this issue. And even my daughter who's in volleyball conditioning, she said on a good day, there's 9 of them. At one point, there are 45 of them in volleyball conditioning, which is outdoors. They have their masks, everything. So I'm just wanting to, like to your point, Carrie, right? Give balance to this whole story, because sure, we can say we're all going to come back, but the math is not in our favor right now. And hopefully midwinter break is going to be something different because it's not a national holiday. But Easter, I think Easter will be our true test if we can come back, because it is a national holiday and everyone is eager to go back and be together with loved ones. So just if we can consider the math of the realities of what's happening right now for many of our schools and communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich?
All right, thanks. First, I also have a student in the district, so that's 3 of us. I'm Crystal, to the, if it's going to be a superintendent sort of coffee, I think only 2 of us could attend. So I know we'll have to figure out how to work that out. 2 questions I have that maybe would be worth answering now, and I don't know if you think it's better not to, or to delay, that's okay. But the definition of stable groups, I guess the main thing is stable groups enable students to attend more than 1 class in a day.
Yes.
I guess that's the main thing that really matters about it. And do we, some people have asked me about the capacity available at each school site. Once all the 2 weeks from now, when those filters have arrived and have been installed, is it fair to say that like every room on campus will be operational given whatever the distance requirements are, or is that too broad of a statement?
No, it won't be every room, but it will be the majority of the rooms. Initially, we attacked the rooms that we could make the quickest modifications in. So there still are some older rooms, but minimal. I would say, I mean, we're over 80% of the sites that can be occupied, meeting the air exchange rates.
80% of the rooms on each site?
Yes.
Or more?
I think that would be a safe
Okay.
guesstimate.
And there are a couple of questions about the surveys. Is that something that we'll be reporting out at a board meeting at some point?
We can the past survey or upcoming surveys?
The one that we just did, the LCAP survey, where we had
Oh, yes, the LCAP survey, those results, I believe, are going to be reported out the 24th. Yes, the 24th.
And has there been, or was there, or is there going to be a comparable type survey of employees of the district and their sort of interest in returning at each tier that will also be reported out?
So yes, the LCAP survey looks a little different for employees than it does for our families and for our students. So all of that data will be reported. And then in addition to that, we will have staff surveys related specifically to reopening, to COVID, and our safety measures.
And was there a question for staff specifically about color tiers and interest in being in a classroom?
There
or
was.
on campus? There was.
There was,
Okay.
yes.
Great. And then I'll just say, one parent asked, how can parents help? And one thing would be, and I know at least one parent on today's call has done it, is become a substitute teacher. I think there's a real shortage of substitute teachers. It's not an easy bar to jump over, but I mean, if we could get several dozen or more parents that would become substitute teachers, that would be the biggest, most impactful way to help, I think. Would you agree, Crystal?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we can
then,
walk them through that process, and there's a link on the website.
so if anyone's interested in actually, contributing as a substitute teacher, that would be a big asset in recovery effort, in return to live instruction efforts. And last, I'll just second Shawnee's comment about summer school. I think there's also a question about summer school, and if we can get that, I know it's sort of mixing things because it's not a future agenda item section, but it's also COVID. So having that at some point on an agenda would be great.
So we are in the midst of planning for summer school. Ms. Hanson is waiting for me to provide her hopefully what I hope to find is an inflated summer school budget for this year. No promises to the principals who are listening to that statement.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, Chris.
I think I'm still trying to gather my thoughts in response to lots of urgent community input. I do want to, like my colleagues, express gratitude to the community for speaking to us, especially in two ways. Gratitude for great questions, but the gratitude also for the tone of that conversation, which I think helps us do our job. As Shanice said, we want the community to know that we hear you, we recognize the urgency of the issue, we recognize the awful impact of it. And I think, as Carrie may have said, we're trying to do more than you see here at board meetings, but the board meetings are at least a good place for us to listen. To our superintendent, I wanted to say something like Rich. I'm anxious to hear many of the responses to the questions that were brought up by the community, and whether that's participating in those sessions you have, or whether something gets printed. I think that's really important for the board as well as the community, because some of the questions I thought would be helpful to us. One of them, I think one of the recurrent ones was a lack of understanding what the roadblocks are. And I don't know, when the community asks about the roadblocks, I don't think that's asking about HVAC systems that need to be put in place, but what's slow, why can this not happen sooner? And I know that's difficult to answer, wouldn't expect you to answer it here, but I think some discussion about that is going to be important. The final note I made, which almost everyone speaking to us tonight offered to help. And Rich, I was glad for your comment about a constructive way that they may be able to help us through substitute teaching and that sort of thing. But I'd like to think about that with the superintendent to see if there are other ways we can tap this amazing community resource here, people who are dedicated to education, care deeply about it, and have offered up their help to us.
Thank you. Okay, I think I've got currently the last hand up, so I'll take a shot at a few things. I think I want to echo that last thought. I mean, the collaborative spirit with which the community has been reaching out, they are demonstrating that there is intense concern, there is great frustration. They are reminding us and putting in front of us that there is great damage being absorbed by our students, and that there is a lot to balance out in the equation of safety and healthy outcomes. An awful lot of what we have heard throughout the period of time of trying to deal with this pandemic has talked about the concept of a dimmer switch rather than a light switch, that the conditions are not the same up and down the spectrum. And one of the things we know is that high school age students catch, transmit, and suffer from the disease at greater rates than elementary school kids. It's not just the difference in the structure of the educational institution, but it is also the rate of transmission and danger in the environment that is somewhat different between elementary level and high school level. And most of what is out in public about opening schools is a blanket statement that uses the term school as shorthand for elementary schools. And we overlook an awful lot of that dimmer switch impact if we are thinking that high school is just part of that umbrella of school. And that really leads to the difference in County Superintendent McGee's statements of really wondering how easy it is for high schools to open up, that they are very different from what's going on in elementary schools. And a lot of that has been conversation that has been going on between school board members across the county who have been meeting regularly with each other and on Zoom with the County Office of Education and with all kinds of county elected representatives. A number of meetings every week, every other week, all over the place. And a recognition of how much more complex and challenging and difficult and dangerous it is at the high school level than at the elementary level. That said, Crystal, you've given us a great update in the dashboard in the huge amount of physical plant investment and planning investment that has been made in safety, and that we are going to have, we're getting very close to having environments that are safe to operate in with protocols that make it safe to operate. And we are coming to a point where the schools are not unsafe, will not be unsafe environments to go into. We will be floating along reflective of infection rates in our communities, which is what's been seen nationally, that schools are not super spreader contributors within safe communities, but they are not super safer than highly infected communities. And so that's what has left us really dependent on the color tiers of reckoning. And as we go hopefully down the color tiers, currently we have been seeing a huge decline from the peak that we hit at the post-Thanksgiving and post-Christmas peak of infection rate. And we're finally beginning to see the start of a decline from peak death rate. We certainly hope so. But that initial decline has been fairly precipitous. We are seeing with this week's change what I expect to be a flattening out of that decline. As we've seen from earlier peaks in the pandemic, the decline was much, much slower than the incline leading to the pandemic, leading to the peak. And at each time, the next low point achieved months later was much higher than anything that had been seen anywhere before that previous peak. And we're still not beyond that in a level of decline. So we can't be all that cavalier in saying anybody can open up in red, we'll do it tomorrow just as soon as it gets there. We are laying out those preparations to make the environment safe. We are laying out those protocols to make our people and their interactions safer. We know there's a heck of a lot of work ahead of us. I think that our movement into that new environment needs to be thoughtful, careful, slowly ramping up. We need to be looking at stages and steps that can keep moving us forward. One of them that we've embraced has been putting together more and more stable cohorts. I want to encourage as many more of our staff, those teachers who talk about being willing and eager to come back to the sites, to please put themselves forward to help us launch more cohorts, help us continue to focus on the groups of students who are most urgently at need of that interaction and that success on campus. Give more and more of our community, both staff and student, that confidence of seeing our protocols and our safety features work so that the momentum can build and more will be eager to come. We want to come back from that significant drop off that Amika was talking about. Our most at risk, most infected communities have pulled back from the amount of engagement that they were having on site because their community has become more dangerous. We need to be pursuing those opportunities to rebuild that confidence that as the communities become safer, the schools are safer and better things are happening at schools, and begin to have more of our staff and our students experience those benefits that we've been talking about all evening long. We talked about the concurrent model, the room and Zoom, and why we picked that. And Jenna Carson did a good job talking about the flexibility and the opportunity that that brings, that we can move more students, more staff onto the campus that way, a bit at a time, and see more and more success and build more momentum and test pilot on the road those safety features and protocols that are now characterizing our schools. Again, build that confidence, hone and sharpen those protocols. Find the places where we thought we'd done everything to make it really safe, but we can do a little bit more and make it safer for more later on. We need to be doing as much of that as early as we can. And it might well be strongly encouraging more and more of our faculty to come back on campus as soon as they can before we're ready to bring students on, and help get the environment more road tested and build the confidence in their own safety and in their peers and their colleagues, and get that going so that the students and their families have more confidence. The comment about more substitute teachers from the community, the more that we can get community adults stepping forward to help out in the classrooms as we come back, that is going to lessen the disruption that comes when individual staff members have reasons they cannot be in the classroom, whether it is a long-term problem, whether it is the health of family members, whether it is a period of illness, so that we can continue to serve the students on campus without disruption. As we ramp up, we are going to see initially a majority of the students at home on any given day, while the pioneering and the growing rollout of more students are spending more and more time on campus. We can't abandon them. We can't suddenly bifurcate and have two completely separate teaching models. That's where the Zoom and Room gives us the flexibility to succeed the most and keep building. So to me, it's really critical that we keep maintaining this perspective of building and building and building. And with that, I want to encourage that we start getting as many of our staff onto the campus as soon as we can. And the strongest thing we can do is encourage them to join peers that have been there teaching from their classrooms safely for months, and get more test mileage on the sites, more test mileage on the protocols, more readiness for the students to come back within our recognizable models and our recognizable schedules. And I want to close all of this by also repeating and reinforcing the things that other members of the board have said. I've got the deepest respect and appreciation for the incredible hard work and brilliant innovation of our staff throughout the district, throughout this horribly difficult year. The ways in which teachers, administrators, everybody in the structure have completely reinvented the work to serve the students best. The longer, more stressful hours than ever that everybody has been putting in. The way we've focused on continuous improvement at everything we're doing. It doesn't mean let's slap our backs and be excited and it's good enough and we stop. But it means that we have to appreciate how hard and how well everybody has been working, because this district is deeply dedicated to the positive outcomes of our students. And I'm very appreciative of all of the input we've heard tonight about ways to keep moving forward and making those outcomes more positive. And the board is with you in trying to continue to keep making it better. And I see both Carrie and then Ms. Horton have their hands up again. So Carrie, please.
Yeah, sorry to come back again, but I have a burning question. It's really for the principals, if you're comfortable in answering this. It's something that has been occurring to me, and it's something I've been dying to ask you guys anyway, so I'll just ask you at this public meeting. You know, the one great thing really is that a lot of community members, families are saying, we're really concerned about our vulnerable kids, right? And I'm wondering if this is really an opportunity our community can do more, right? And I don't know if this is the right thinking that I have. You know, we have foster youth that need CASAs, but there's a waiting list, right? So a lot of foster, especially what I learned when I advocated for foster youth, is a lot of times people don't want to mentor teen boys. We have teen boys that need CASAs. Friends for Youth has a huge waiting list, and they're a wonderful organization where it's not an in and out mentor. It's a long-term commitment to a kid. So we have kids that need the power of our community. Are there things like that when people say, what can we do? It's more than just substituting. There's so many ways people can help our most vulnerable kids. And Sean, I'm thinking about some of the kids that I've met from your school recently through my son, you know, kids that had to go to work full time, and it interferes with their studies, and they have to go to work. And some kids are taking 2 jobs because their parents have been laid off. So when I'm asked that question with that sort of focus on our most vulnerable kids, is there more that we should be saying? Because this could be a time, especially with hundreds of parents mobilizing, maybe this is a time to really do more as a community.
I could take a stab at what, I witnessed at Carmont. I know their schools are doing the same, but when you talk about families in need, our PTSA and our staff have stepped up when we had a food drive. So we opened up our student union. Our student union had food to be distributed. We had parents and families come. We put the food in bags and boxes, and we put it in the back of their cars. I'm delivering to a family every week that can't get to Carmont to pick up food. So in that aspect, the community has come together to provide food and resources. And it goes beyond just providing canned food, right? It's other food and it's gift cards. So our PTSA raised $10,000 and distributed gift cards to families in need. So when you say, what more can you do? Yeah, there could be mentoring, but that's hard to get connected to people to be a mentor unless you are in those organizations. So our families, our community has come together to provide those resources. And, those students that are vulnerable, those students that are, not the ones that are in multiple jobs, but, foster youth have been invited to participate in our cohorts. We provide transportation for a couple of students to get to the school as well, because we know that they can't get there. So that's, I guess, part of the answer.
I can echo what Ralph said. Very similar. We've had a lot of support for students and families. MA's well-known canned food drive and distribution, which we were able to do with safety protocols in person. We do have some mentoring, and we've really, thanks to our wonderful library media specialist and Kat Burton and our freshman transition coordinator, been able to connect students to peer tutors as well. And then again, the on-campus cohorts. So we started a 6th one just last week to really, get students that we can, who need those various levels of access and support on campus. So I think it's a multi-layered approach, the taking care of basic needs, providing what we can at school. And I'll just remind everybody, we are open. My classified staff is on site every day. My admin team is on site every day. We are getting, we have the campus ready. We're looking at things. We're health screening. We're checking kids in. They're going to the cohorts. We have co-curricular supports going on after school in addition to the athletic cohort. So I just want to remind everyone the schools are open. I understand the push to reopen for instruction, and I think we're well on our way to getting there. But just want to remind everybody, there's staff working really, really hard every day. As I have heard our wonderful Board of Trustees echo as well, to keep our schools moving and to do the best that we can. So yeah, the more co-curricular cohorts we can host. Another way for substitute help is getting substitute help to assign more than one adult to a cohort. So there's more support for the 12 students that are in a cohort. So that just came to mind as another idea.
Burbank?
Diane?
Hi, Diane.
Thank you. Principals are under a lot of restrictions as to what adults can be on campus. No volunteers and no mentors that aren't paid staff members, and probably HR can speak to that. So for instance, when we're looking for the SAT proctors coming up, while we used to be, when we offered the SAT earlier in the year for juniors, we were able to use parent volunteers, and that's the way we made it work. Moving forward, we've been told that we can't use parent volunteers as, for instance, SAT proctors coming up, or cohort volunteers or mentors. They need to be paid members of the staff, which is the reason we need substitutes. A lot of hoops to jump through.
Hey, Diane, just an update on that. The reason that they're not allowed on campus right now is because we're in the purple tier. When we move to the red tier, that will change and they will be allowed to help proctor. So let me join you in your SAT proctoring commercial.
Griselda had
Yeah.
Alan.
Just if I can respond to Carrie, I think that originally the question was addressed at Sequoia. I'd just like to also point out how much we've been able to leverage our role, and I think this is true of all the schools, as kind of a trusted hub within the community network. So what we've been, we can't shift to become a full service charitable organization that can meet all the needs of our community, especially when we're talking about needs that are the product of deep economic injustice and inequality in this community. We are not talking about simple cases of families that might, benefit from having an extra turkey at Thanksgiving. This is a massive economic inequality that is being laid bare for the world to see, and nowhere probably more so than in our county, in terms of the haves and the have-nots. The kinds of things we've seen on home visits, I think they've made me brought me to tears. I mean, I get very emotional just thinking about some of the things that I've seen. What we've tried to do, rather than chase every rabbit we can, is to try and coordinate as much as possible between our family center, our parent coordinator, Elvira Macias, who's done a wonderful job of helping to connect with organizations in the community. And some of these organizations are able to provide for like a month, and then they run out. And there are county programs that come and then they run out. So it's almost trying to keep up with what is the new thing this month that we can connect families to help them get to where they need to be. We have an incredible volunteer coordinator. Our foundation, our PTSA, has been 100% focused on how can we meet the needs of our most vulnerable families in this economic climate. It's very, very intense. And to your question about the mentoring thing, I think those are whenever you can establish those kinds of connections, are great. We had an awesome academy mentor virtual meeting today that I attended. We had over 180, but between the academy students and the volunteers, so there was a huge turnout for that. That's still going strong. It can be hard. We've had a lot of people who have come and said, hey, I want to work with kids. So we connect them with our volunteer coordinator. They run through the rigmarole of being cleared level 1, level 2, whatever need be. But there's a matchmaking. There's a personality match there, right? So you can sort of set up this kind of awkward, hey, this person wants to help you out with your math. And, and then they're going to be here every week. And then there's a kid who's like, this guy's a weirdo, or I'm not vibing with this person, And and that's even more so the case in the virtual, climate, or in the virtual world. So it really does take a special kind of matchmaking or match to be made for those relationships to work. And I know that there are organizations, like you mentioned, Friends for Youth, that are really good at that and really good at sort of onboarding and giving those volunteers a training. So that's a good plug. But just sort of to give everyone a little bit more color to Trustee Dubois' question. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Grace, you had your hand up.
I did. Thank you for recognizing me and allowing me to speak during this time. First and foremost, I speak as a parent as well, and I listen as a parent first. I have a junior in high school, not in the school district, but in the school district that I live in, and I have a young adult that is in junior college. And so I have seen firsthand the struggles that both of my kids have gone through, but I hear everyone that was on the, as members of the reopening of SUHSD. So I hear all of you guys, and I also want to shed some light because transparency kept being the topic of, we want to understand, we want the district to be transparent. And I want to share that, at least in the standpoint of my school site, how classified, and Simone touched on this, and I want to build on what she has said. Our school site has been open. We have since, gosh, I don't know, maybe, I don't know what month, but sometime early in the, when we started to reopen our school site with the stable cohorts, we had a long list of students being recommended. And I have been calling parents, and when it's their turn, they either are not responding back, they have changed their mind, they are afraid because of the new surge, they are afraid because of the new variant, and they're not coming on campus. They're wanting to, wanting to come has changed. So we want to let those parents know that there is opportunities there are opportunities for your student to come on campus and be part of the on-campus experience, especially those with the learning gaps and the disadvantages of economics or food insecurities. And our staff has been very creative with trying to make ends meet and help those in need when there is someone reaching out to us. And there has been a huge lift in every area. And so I want you all to know that I am being intentional with wanting to show transparency, first as a parent listening and understanding the struggle, and second, as a classified employee. And this is exactly what Simone was saying. There are classified staff that come on site every day. There are teachers that come on site without being vaccinated. And we have administrators that come on site, and they're not saying that they're not coming on campus because they haven't been vaccinated. I mean, we have many heroes that are on site, both at the school sites, maintenance, we have the district office. So all across the board, I just want you all to know that we're, like Shawnee said, we're here for you. We hear you, we're with you, we're doing our best. And I also attend as a parent and as a community member to my school boards in my communities, just to hear and to make sure that I encourage those with wanting to be creative. And I'll stop there. I don't want to rant, but thank you for the space.
Thank you. Shanice.
Well, my computer went dead, so I didn't know what the question was, but I assume it's what else we can do. Is that what you were asking, Carrie? So there are a couple of ideas that I have, and I don't know if this is the forum to say, I think you guys have heard me talk about this. But one that I haven't talked a lot about is our deep partnerships in the community. I know EPAA is just sent a wonderful email out and talk about you're part of my peeps, my village, right? And I think that to what Sean has said, that we can't do it alone. There are a lot of community people beyond parents, community partners, organizations that are in it with us. I know the Boys and Girls Club. I think there's a youth organization that's in Redwood City that's doing some work. We've modeled some of our stuff off the Boys and Girls Club in Redwood City, Live in Peace, and East Palo Alto Tennis and Tutoring, all these different organizations. And I actually wonder if we should be partnering more deeper with them. In the sense, I said, we're responsible for academics, but they can help families in a different way. They don't have some of the constraints we do as nonprofits versus I've worked for federal and state organizations. Sometimes the county will contract out to nonprofits to do things that the county can't do because they have more flexibility. And so I wonder about that deep partnership. As a person who's had a child being offered learning pods in different settings because of her needs, and we chose to stay at home for various reasons, with a lot of us being the moderator. But it has worked out for us for one child and not so much for the other, but we are still committed to that. So the deeper partnerships with the organizations, I know we have been deeply impacted by the 49er Academy, the Boys and Girls Club, and now Live in Peace in a variety of ways, different needs, different points, because they have different expertise. So I want to put that out there as a key for us. I know that we can't do this alone. And when I say that, that may loosen up some of who we're trying to reach out to, you know, and the principals have to tell me I'm not principalship, so I'm not seeing it from your perspective. But I just wonder about some of the kids that we've heard about tonight, who could fill up those slots. We don't want to give up on the other kids as well. So I'm trying to balance this a little bit, but there might be other families who said, give me the learning pod, because my child is dealing with depression, We may not know who they are because they may not have an IEP or 504 plan, and that's okay. But they may be the ones who need to come to campus. Maybe the parents will drive them there, right? And stand out saying, you go to school because you need it, because it's like medicine for your depression. Or maybe it's the kiddo where parents are working and they're scared to leave them at home to their own devices. Although they're mature kids, we know kids who are bored, who are not connecting with the Zooming, boredom creates other issues. And so we need them to have some more accountability, not because they have a 4.0, but because of their temperament. And they may still have great grades. And so I would like to open up and for us to see that there may be some other students who don't seem like they need it on the outside. But if we dig deeper or look at their grades, but we dig a little deeper on the social and emotional, that may happen. And then really partner our mental health strategies within those learning pods and start thinking about starting to pilot some of those wellness and mental health strategies within those learning pods because of the 15-minute break, maybe extending the day, doing some beginning, almost like leadership camp, but like, something like that I've participated in the past. So deep partnerships and going deeper with those partnership and helping them with us for those students who can't get in, and really honoring those partnerships and building that communication. And then this other piece of expanding. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up for someone to throw something in.
There's a public comment.
Well, we've had a whole bunch of public comments, so this was the board discussion following up on all of the input that we've had. So I would, I would want to follow up with Crystal on the request that Mary Angelina had, that slide deck presentation be distributed as widely as possible, and certainly I think the sites can probably make some use of it through our staff into the classrooms as well, and also with this idea that that you brought forward of superintendent office hours. As Rich commented, we wouldn't be able to have more than 2 board members join in on one of those, but
actually, Alan, we could probably have more than 2 attend. We just can't probably participate.
Yeah. So we might look at setting up some sort of a rotation of 2 board members being available as participants in a given one, and others, the rest, invited to be attendees. Or if you feel that it's really, fully a superintendent activity, then just distribute the information so the board members can attend whatever ones they want. And Crystal, you have some closing thoughts on this whole discussion.
There's still a lot more to do. And I appreciate the conversations, and I hope that, again, moving to an opportunity to kind of set up a different forum for our families where there's more of an interaction will help provide some clarity, just kind of overall clarity to understanding all of the different things that feed into the decisions that we make and the decisions that we make moving forward. So I do appreciate the dialogue. And as Shawnee said, I do hear you. I do read. I am a mother. Mine has moved back home for like the 4th time, but I'm not going to get into that. But I am there with you, and the safety of our staff and our students is at the forefront of the decisions that we make. So that's all I have to say.
Excellent.
Ellen, I just want to make sure we're clear. The questions that the parents ask, Crystal is going to be answering those in a different forum. So all is not lost with the questions that parents have had tonight.
Right.
Okay.
Right. There's been a lot of note taking going on.
Yes. And so Crystal, just to make it clear, because I know some people are feeling like this is a little foggy still, they want timelines. When is your first open, when do you suspect your office hours to start having this engagement?
I don't know. Soon.
Okay.
That's all I have right now. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So we've got action items. We've got 2 that we pulled off of the consent agenda, as well as item 13.1. So let's do item 13.1, and then we can get to the 2 from the consent agenda.
Okay, so action item. So trustees, we spent a Saturday, what seems to be a long, long time ago. Honestly, I think it was a couple weeks ago, in a retreat on Saturday. And out of that came a little bit of a reorganization and some collapsing of our officer positions. So we bring that back tonight for official action item, which is collapsing the clerk and the vice president into combined positions.
Crystal, is it a single motion, or do we do it in 2 steps?
I would think 2 steps is a good idea, so that we would first.
Okay, so first I will move that we combine the vice president and clerk role to have a single role titled vice president and clerk.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And then
Okay. That is unanimous.
I make a motion that Carrie serve in that newly created position.
Second.
Second, or whatever.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Get your
Okay.
pen ready, Carrie.
So this is how you run a peaceful transition of power.
We're good.
Yeah. All right. And okay, with that, then let's move on to our
7.4 and 7.5.
items. Yeah. All right. So, and Grace will ask you to talk to us about the approval of personnel recommendations 7.4.
Thank you, President Sarver. For item 7.4, approval of personnel recommendations. I just noticed, I think, beginning this school year, because maybe it's because I was looking, I noticed that some classified staff have their hire dates changed. And I'm a little concerned with why this is happening. And the other concern is that this would definitely impact them long-term with their benefits and years of service. So I'd like to understand why this is happening, and I'd like to have this corrected if something needs to be corrected. I'll give you an example. I noticed that an employee was hired in November and appeared in the personnel recommendations at that time. And now I'm seeing that same person appearing with a February hire date. So I'm not understanding why. Maybe we can work offline, since we don't want to put out too much information of the employees and all that stuff. So I see you popped in, Jackie.
So one of the explanations could be under classified staff, you'll notice that there's a designation as short-term, and then there's a designation as probationary. So if someone is hired in a short-term capacity, they're usually a substitute, or there's like a short-term, which could be up to, I think it's 30 something weeks, I'd have to look. And then if that person moves, which would be our preference, moves from short-term to probationary, they will have a new hire date for the probationary position. So we would want to circle back and look at Grace, you would need to tell me like specific people. And so give me a call and let me know who they are, because that's probably the situation. And their seniority is based on their probationary hire date, not their short-term hire date. So just shoot me an email with the names and we'll double check.
Okay, yes, and I, thanks for clarifying that, and I have been seeing that happen in the probationary status. So
Okay.
they're probationary back in some months, and then they appear again as probationary with a new hire date. And so that's why I was concerned. So before this other personnel recommendations was approved again on the consent, I'm like, okay, I better say something, because this shouldn't go on. And yes, I will contact your office, Jackie, and we'll settle.
Grace, do you have any objections with this being approved tonight?
I guess have it approved with the caveat that we can go ahead and correct this wherever it needs correction.
That's correct. We can make any, come back with any corrections.
I move to approve item 7.4 with the ability to fix any corrections or correct any errors.
Second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that one is passed, and you two will be able to follow up on the questions and concerns. Okay, the second one was 7.5, the instructional calendar.
Yes, and on that one, I know that the description says that the district has met and worked with SDTA. And as the district moves forward with being more inclusive, AFSCME would just like to request that we be invited to these committees, this committee, when they're drafting the instructional calendar as we move forward. And that's just a request on that bit.
Right. And we would be happy to do that. I think one of the concerns is that this is the instructional calendar. And then as Grace knows, that when we move to the classified calendars, there's numerous classified calendars. Because, for example, when Grace starts as a AVP secretary, her start date and her year is different than a bus driver that's different than a para that's and so I think there's like a dozen classified calendars, but definitely because it determines the start of the school year and the end of the school year, we can definitely have that dialogue with AFSCME. I'd be happy to do that.
Right.
Same question, Grace, do you have any objections to this being approved?
No objection.
All right, I move to approve item 7.5.
I'll second that one too.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. All right. So next up would be Board of Trustees, Superintendent's comments, committee reports, and agenda setting. Does anybody have anything?
Well, two items I mentioned earlier would be the surveys, which I think are coming, and summer school, which I think is coming.
Okay, great. Other thoughts from the board?
Is this comments for the next agenda, like agenda items?
Yeah.
I don't know where this belongs. I know I brought it up before, but I'd like to start talking about mental health. I think we need to get prepared, whatever our reopening, whatever our in-person, but definitely doing our distance learning, to start thinking about that a little bit more closely.
Okay.
I don't know where it belongs, but I know summer is important, but I think mental health as well.
So Interim Superintendent Leach, I would say that this, mental health and summer school are two of several items that loom large in our sights as part of the moving forward into a post-COVID world. And, all of the recovery activity that's out there. Are they things that you would see coming up on the calendar as topics of conversation as part of our COVID updates, as separate items heavily flavored by the umbrella of COVID?
With mental health, where you would see that appear is more so like in the LCAP, and then the social emotional task force updates. So if that's not what we're looking for, then I would need I would need a little bit more information if it was a different report.
No, I would agree with that, because I think the social emotional task force is going to be presenting. Or the other place to put it is, I really am dying to review the Healthy Kids Survey information, where we could just sort of kind of report that out at some point. But a lot of work is in motion, so I would rather wait until staff is ready to present to us.
As long as part of it is the mental health workers talking to us, the ones who actually do the therapy and doing some of the wellness on site is a part of that. Somehow I know Jared does some work. I'm not quite sure how everything works together with the soul and the mental health and all that, because it's different terms. And so I'm not quite sure what it means. But in my world, the social, emotional, and the mental health are very connected, although there may be a spectrum. And so if there's some way, so Krista, you just have to tell me which one it goes in, and I'd be happy to say, okay, it's on the agenda, as long as I know it's coming. But I know part of it, I need to know from the mental health workers, what did it look like before distance learning, and what is their sense now as clinical, from their clinical opinion, and really begin to say, how do we integrate them more efficiently in the distance learning, in the whatever we do moving forward, the learning pods or in person, because I think it's going to take a lot of partnership to do that, because we know that there's lots of ways that it can look at a school, not just diet, therapy, or parent or groups, but really thinking about what do we really do around that area.
So what you described with what it looked like before and like these different touch points and measurements kind of lead me to an independent report. I mean, how we're moving forward and we're integrating in the services overall in general, I think we could touch on with the SEL task force update, but I'm not sure that's going to give you everything that you mentioned.
Can I make a suggestion? This is what I did when I was new. It's actually the first thing I did. And it's fine to still do it in the COVID world, is I actually went and met our counselors. So like if you go to Carlmont, you'll meet Shelley Mustabati, and you'll see her challenge, students, I'm blinking on the name of her program.
Students offering support.
I can't believe I'm blinking. And then, Woodside uses a nonprofit that Yeah. So I met those guys. So you can do Zoom calls and just kind of ask about their program.
I think that that's fine, Carrie. I do that now. We meet with people, but I think I am at the place where I suspect what is happening on some of the camp. Now I haven't spoken to everyone. That's why I'm still meeting with principals and stuff like that. And I will ask those questions around mental health, but I suspect there's some things that we need to hear in a report. I think is directly related to social emotional. So I don't know if we could do maybe a half hour of this of the social emotional task force and 15-20 minutes of a couple of mental health therapists coming out and talking about from the different campuses to present their stories or their cases and how it looks before and after, so that we have a holistic picture. I don't think I need an hour of a mental health presentation, but what I'm saying, it could be a tag along to I'm sorry, I'm using my job's language, sorry. Soul is social and emotional for what we say in my job. So social and emotional with mental health. So I'll give you guys adult language. So that's what I'm thinking, like 15-20 minutes in addition to the task force.
Jackie, do you know when we're on target for that SEL update?
We have our next meeting later this month, and the update would probably be more about the process and what we're planning on accomplishing this year. I think the challenge with bringing in and doing a mental health report, number one, if you think those mental health people are going to only talk for 15 minutes, you haven't talked to them yet.
I'm a social worker. We can do it if we're forced to.
So that we would really have to orchestrate that. I think that, you know, one of our challenges is one of the people that's intimately involved in that is Javier, who's also now leading the COVID-19 testing, you know, protocols. So we have to figure out what staff time do we have. So let me talk to Crystal offline about this and see what we can put together and what we can look at, because we can pull data now from the system, because we have had, before COVID-19, we set up the system for counseling interventions. So we could look at that March demarcation and look at the referrals, what they were, how many were there, and then after March for this year, what are we looking at? And we also know from that information what were the issues that the student was reporting. Were they reporting relationship problems? Were they reporting being sad, depression, or whatever it was? So let me talk to student services staff and see, can they pull that information for a report?
Except with that, we have a new way of working. I don't mean to mess you up, Shanice, because this is the area I care most about, but we have a new way of working where we really want to be more organized when we ask staff to go off.
Yeah.
And we want 2 board members at least to be interested. And the reason we want to be more organized is because we just have to think more about how to do this, right?
Well, I'll say this, I'll back off if we feel like we're not organized, but from my—
I'm talking about us as board members when we ask for information.
I'm from my clinical perspective, and I'm just going to keep saying it every time, is that we need to start planning for all types of issues going to be coming back. There are some kids who are going to be so happy, but still going to fall apart in school and distance learning, all these different, whatever the model is, none of it is not going to get them all prepared for coming out of this crisis. And so I just want to be on the record saying that we need to get ready, and we need to start getting data, getting lead ups, and not wait to May or June until we are completely organized, but to begin to give preliminary data with therapists who are there. I would love to have Javier. I understand he's doing a whole different job now. And I also want to be very much, not pushy, but firm and resolute that we will need to think about this. So thank you.
So this is the kind of thing that, you know, we're talking about, definitely some staff time impact, and our board protocols indicate that we want to have 3 board members that are willing to vote to dedicate the effort to add it to an upcoming agenda. And I think, you know, we also have a new protocol of 2 board members working together with the right person on defining the data that we want to go after, so that we understand the time to invest.
Yeah, and I just can't wrap my mind around it right now. So I just need maybe more time to think about it, or maybe a different time to talk.
I wonder if it might make sense, Jackie, for you to be able to get together with Shanice, and maybe if Carrie is the right other person, to just kind of talk through, to get a good sense of what the data and what the research would be, and so that you can give us a sense of the time commitment and bring
we
it
can
back.
we can definitely do that. And what Shanice is asking for are things that we are on our minds, and things that we have been thinking about doing, because we do need that information as we move forward. And it's something that the SEL task force is going to be looking at. There is going to be a subgroup on the task force that is going to be looking at that data. But that work has only just begun. So it may be that we don't have that data until we're in April or May. And so I think that's the timing of that will be, but it's definitely data that we need to look at. And I would agree with Shanice, is that we need to be prepared for a lot of things that we may not have been dealing with in the past.
Okay, so it sounds like it's something that's already in a pipeline that should be part of an upcoming report out that the board can see. So I think it sounds more like duly noted.
Or the data again, it's Healthy Cities. I always call it Healthy Cities. It's not Healthy Cities. Healthy Kids Survey. That's the data that we
Right,
haven't had seen for a couple of years. There's the mental health, substance abuse. I mean, that's amazing data combined with the LCAP.
And when we get those results in, I don't think those results have come in yet, but when we do, we will be reporting out, and we can do that either at a board meeting or in a Friday update.
Okay, sounds good to me. Is that okay with you, Shanice?
I think it will have to be. Yeah, it will just have to be. I can talk offline to whomever I need to. I have some concerns.
Ralph?
Sorry, yeah, I think it's a fair point to say that we don't know what students' mental health will be when we return, when we start to transition back. And data is going to be great to look at and understand, but I think a more actionable item would be to find trainings or professional development opportunities for all of our counselors, because you got to remember, our counselors are not just schedulers for classes and academic counselors. They're also counselors to help students through crises as well. So the more training we have for our everyday counselors, I think the better prepared we are as a school to deal with anything that students may be coming back with or any challenges they have coming back with. So, my ask would be to provide and to look for opportunities to send our counselors to these trainings and professional developments that are helping them understand what they're going to need to do and helping them stay healthy themselves, so they're able to help the students, because we know that if we're not healthy, if we're not in a good place, we're not able to help the people that need it the most. So that, I think, would be more meaningful for sites.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying, Sean. I know I've worked closely. I don't even know if Simone is still on here, but with MA to get trauma-informed training, to do, I just talked to someone there about the mental health AIDS training, similar to first aid training. There's a lot that's out there to get us ready for what's happening. It's even happening with some of our physicians in the community who are getting retrained on mental health as the first line of duty. And there's ways to really begin to get prepared, because everyone, from the bus driver to the janitor to the teachers, the frontline staff, and then the mental health specialists, everyone needs to be trained on how to notice depression and all these other things that families have been pounding us about are actually true. And so as a professional who's been in the system before, and just have known people with families who have struggled, not just because of the pandemic, but the pandemic has exposed it even more. And for those who are dealing with mild depression and anxiety related to some of the things that are happening, I don't want us or the community, since parents are still here, to think that school is going to be the magical pill to deal with everything, and that we are going to have to be prepared for whatever comes of that. And we also want to make sure that our staff are well taken care of emotionally, because they're great people. And that may be where mental health consultation comes into play. That might be, there's so many things that are out there. And I don't think we can do it alone. I think Sequoia Health District may be very interested in something like this. So
Sorry,
I'm gonna back
We're
off.
getting past a future agenda item and turning it into an agenda
I'm
item.
gonna back off, Rich. I'm gonna back off, but I just feel very resolute in this. We can figure out offline, Jackie or whomever, but I just wanted to be on the record how serious and urgent I feel about this. Thank you.
I did want to just mention that I just sent a great resource. It's literally called the SEL Roadmap to Return to School. And I don't know how many Jackie sent a lot of us to the national school counselors conference today and tomorrow. I think there might have been 50 of us or something. There's a ton of us. And this was one of the workshops. It's free. It's comprehensive. It's produced by Castle. It's amazing. So there is some good stuff out there. So we don't have to start from zero.
Awesome. Carrie.
Yes. So different topic. I appreciate your enthusiasm, Shawnee's, on that last topic. I keep thinking the new me is I don't want to drive staff crazy. So, and that's why I was.
Hey, that's why we're here.
That's why I was talking about us being just me being different as we continue to work. But anyway, my topic is I did a bad thing and glanced at my phone, and one parent is very frustrated because she felt like we didn't answer her questions during the COVID update. And I was thinking about how I would respond to her, and it might make her mad. And I'm wondering if there's something we could do. The answer is the board meeting is for the board, which sounds very selfish, but it really is for the board because we don't have time to talk to each other, right? And it's the only time we can deliberate with each other and have our conversations. And the role of the public is to watch, right? Which would be really frustrating to people that are just starting to watch how this messy, slow process of having meetings in public works. So do we need to help people understand that? I don't know that would be a communication piece that goes out from the board, and maybe we just leave it alone. But because people are frustrated right now as it is, should we spend a little bit more time educating our community on how board meetings work, which it doesn't seem ideal when you're observing.
I hope that if I could just talk to this, I mean, especially with the topic that we have tonight, right? Again, I hope that creating an environment where there can be the back and forth within the SUPS hours will help with that. And then when our community returns to a board meeting and there's a COVID update, that their questions would look a little different. It's not seeking information, right? It's so I hope that provides some clarity for that and eases some of the frustration. And as we talk to them, I mean, as I talk to parents, I share with them because they do share with me about this level of frustration of not really understanding how board meetings work. I don't know how 9,500 families would feel about me giving them a communication of how board meetings work, but we could try. But I definitely think that we can chip away at this because we know what they want to talk about, right? We know what they want to talk about. We know what they want answers to. And so we're going to provide them a forum to do that.
Excellent. Okay, so that brings us to adjournment for the evening. And I know that at least Rich has an item that we wanted to get back into closed session to touch on again. And we're getting out of here without having to vote to extend the meeting beyond 10 o'clock. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get through our return to closed session without having to extend very far at least. So with that, I thank everybody for good night's meeting. And motion to adjourn back to closed session.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. See you somewhere soon.